Welcome to the Pride of Detroit PODcast, prideofdetroit.com, Pride of Detroit on Twitter, Pride of Detroit on Facebook. Hey, you know where to find us. Live, I think for the time being, barring technical issues, on twitch.tv /Pride of Detroit and youtube.com /at Pride of Detroit. We'll see how long it's lasting because the last couple of streams have been knocking us out, but we're going to continue this podcast regardless of what happens because you at home, listening audio-wise, you are the main audience. You're the main characters in all of this. Debatable, but either way, it's where we started and it's the primary way we get things out. So, Monday night, glorious time to go into the bye week at 3-1 for the Detroit Lions in a flip the script game. Lions had a top 10 defense coming into this game, and in this game, it was a shootout, including one perfect man who apparently everyone forgot about what he did, and he did not get a game ball. And nevertheless, I am Chris Perfett, at Chris Perfett on Twitter, Perfett, the man who always gets the game balls around here. Jeremy Reisman, the fearless leader, at Detroit on Lion.
Hello, everybody. Feeling a bit sleep deprived, but, the adrenaline from last night, the adrenaline of maybe a bottom of the ninth inning that may or may not have just happened, kind of got the heart rate going a little bit. So I'm feeling pretty good, especially knowing that the vibes are going to continue to be good over the next bye week here.
And you know that the vibes are good when Jeremy, of all people, is the one bringing up baseball, a subject that I was told not to bring up ever again on this podcast. But for all of those wondering what Tigers baseball is like, that bottom of the ninth, that is, and you're listening to Dan Dickerson, and he's starting to sound like he's having the war flashbacks. That's Cardiac Cats. Ryan Matthews, at Ryan_POD, is a firm knower of Cardiac Cats. He lives it every day.
Something like that. I think finally baseball went back on the menu, Chris, because the Lions head coach decided to share an anecdotal story about baseball. So we can talk about baseball again because Dan Campbell's talking about baseball. So
the game was also up, I think, during the press conferences as well, Jeremy. Is that right?
It sure was. And as if my heart couldn't grow any fonder of Dan Campbell, he tells a story about him in Little League hitting a grand slam only for it to be called back on a weird technicality of the rule and then ending the story with "I hate baseball."
I mean, that sounds like Lions football right there too, is it not? A lot of people learned for the first time apparently last night that you can't actually get a horse collar tackle if you're still inside the in the box.
Yeah, in the tackle box.
In the tackle box, yeah. Huh, interesting.
Trouble in paradise, though. We have a general manager that loves baseball analogies, but a head coach that doesn't. Am I sensing the first bit of fraying tension between the general manager and head coach in Detroit?
As long as nobody brings a baseball bat to the draft war room, we're all good.
Dan Campbell doesn't carry. Well, he does carry around baseball bats for too long, apparently. So.
All right, enough of the baseball. Let's talk about Monday night and talk about football. Let's talk about 42 points for the Detroit Lions, 29 for the Seattle Seahawks in a game that turned into a romp, a real just holy God. The black jerseys came out and the fireworks came out and everyone started blasting all at once. The Lions able to blast a little bit longer, the defense getting the stop they needed to. But even on offense, sometimes, Jeremy, the offense was moving so quick, I don't think the defense got a chance to catch a breath. Be it a 70-yard, one-play touchdown from Jared Goff to J-Mo, or Jared Goff catching a ball himself. But I think we have to start with number 16 under center. 18 of 18 on the night. Again, he doesn't have to be a tremendous hero like he was in the Tampa Bay game. He doesn't have to throw it 50 times. He only needed 18 passes. He was perfect on all of them. And he has two passing touchdowns and one receiving touchdown. This was Jared Goff's world, and we were all living in it.
I don't think I could have predicted this in a million years. I was really buying into the narrative that this was going to be a defensive slobberknocker, like one of these low-scoring games that everyone says is terrible, but actually is just two really good defensive minds going at each other. But man, what a redemption game for Ben Johnson, for the Lions, for Jared Goff, going up against Mike McDonald. a defensive coordinator who absolutely destroyed them, last year with the Ravens in a way that was just is the most embarrassing game by the Lions probably in the last 3 years. And listen, I understand that the Seahawks were missing a lot of guys on that defensive front, 4 guys all on the defensive line. Like, it's hard for any team to look good with that. But all I heard from Seahawks fans was like, listen, we got a deep bench there, all right? We're going to be okay. And just look at our secondary, right? And I looked at their secondary and I'm like, that might be the best secondary the Lions face all year. I don't think the Lions are going to be able to throw the ball at all in this game. They're going to have to run it 1 billion times to win. And listen, they did run it 28 times to only throwing it 19. But if you were going to tell me that Jared Goff would literally almost hit 300 yards, throw for his highest yards per attempt of his entire career, and complete every damn one of his passes, again, would have never predicted it in a million years. And a lot of credit goes to Jared Goff, because I thought in this game he was excellent at being patient, at going through all of his progressions, not panicking, not, like in some of those early games this season, he'd go through those progressions, but like at 3 times the speed. Like, if you're listening to this podcast 1.75, it was like double that. And it caused inaccurate passes. It caused all these problems. Jared Goff was calm, cool, collective. And Ben Johnson, man, like, Ben Johnson was absolutely in his freaking bag this entire game, whether it's the trick plays or catching the Seahawks being a little bit over aggressive in the run on a 3rd and 3. I can see you squirming, Ryan, and I'm almost assuming it's entirely because of the 3rd and 1 pitch play, which I'm with you. That was a horrible play call. But outside of that, I thought it was an absolute masterclass. And again, I like so many demons being put to bed with this one, with the Seahawks obviously having a hold on this rivalry and the Mike McDonald stuff. I could not have been happier with the offensive performance. And it was just like fun again, right? Like, remember last year when they had these offensive runs where, they're scoring, how many like consecutive quarters did they score that one time? It was like 20 consecutive quarters they had scored a touchdown. Well, they scored a touchdown in every quarter this time again, and the Lions are fun again. It felt like this was the first game where it was really like, okay, these are the fun Lions that I remember. We're back, baby.
It only took 1 series, though, right? Like,
True,
Dan
true.
Campbell, and I promise I'm not wet blanketing right now, but like, there was that bit of uneasiness. There was a lot of conviction and confidence when it's like, oh, the Lions won the toss and they're taking the football. Oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah, that's how we're going to start the game.
Yeah.
3 and out. Oh, that's how we're going to start the game. Okay. But, and we'll talk about the defense and stuff, but I do want to focus on Goff. I do want to say that this was Jared Goff's most complete game of the season. This was the best that he played through 4 quarters. With the Arizona game, there was more perfection, right? Like, he was dotting the ball around the field. And then the second half, it was, I don't want to lay it all at the feet of Jared Goff, but it wasn't, I think, the team and the offense specifically putting their foot on the gas. And they never took their foot off the gas in this game. Whether it didn't matter where they were on the field, aside from one, as Jeremy pointed out, 1 3rd and 1 toss to David Montgomery. That's not catching anybody off guard.
Also, whatever that play in the end zone that resulted in a safety was,
yeah, we got to talk about that later too. Here's the one thing I do want to say. I think Ben Johnson was absolutely in his bag. And in the red zone, it was as fun and creative as he's been. Now, you can't say all season because, I mean, look at the hook and ladder that,
Sure.
Amon-Ra and Gibbs ran a week ago. But now we're building on that, right? That was the one play where it was like, oh, this is super exciting. And then this game, it was, it throwing the kitchen sink at it. And the kitchen sink hitting all the time. The Lions offense in the red zone, phenomenal.
I think this was the game the Lions offense definitely found its mojo and its yin yang balance, really, Ryan, because you had 116 yards rushing. David Montgomery once again unstoppable on some of these runs. Jahmyr Gibbs like not going to the outside, going up the middle with holes opened up. We also have to remember this game was done without Frank Ragnow. I thought Glasgow and Awosika like filled in spectacularly at center and guard, respectively. And they kept those same holes that you expect out of Frank. and Glasgow side to open up. They were opened right up once again. The running lanes were there. And I mentioned this on our preview podcast too, that I wanted to see the Lions involve Tim Patrick because I thought that, this offense is in a good place when you are 3 receivers deep and Sam Laporta. Like, you've got all those options plus Jahmyr Gibbs receiving threats available on the field. Involving Tim Patrick for 52 yards on 2 receptions. That's the Lions offense of last year. That's exactly, you just hope Tim Patrick can keep building on these kind of performances and morph into a Josh Reynolds role once again, because you see how different this game is when Patrick was involved, when in addition to St. Brown and JMO and Laporta having multiple targets to spread the ball around, which then allowed, I think, Jared Goff to just be a lot more comfortable in his progressions, to have those options to go to different targets rather than just honing in on, two guys. Like it opened everything up. I think it also opened the playbook up, certainly for Ben Johnson, and it kept the run game. The run game was established very well in here. This was I think this is what you want the Lions offense to look like every game.
I want to circle back to Goff though.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of people that are saying that this is Jared Goff's like best game, or this is like the best that I think this was like a B performance from Jared Goff. And I'm not taking the PFF moo stance, okay? I'm not saying that like Geno outperformed him or anything. But here's what I am saying. In week 4, Jared Goff's ADOT was 4.3 yards. It was 32nd among all quarterbacks in week 4. It was a full yard behind Dak Prescott, who was 31st. At a certain point in the game, the Lions had 133 receiving yards, and 116 of them were after the catch. And then later on in the game, the Lions had 269 receiving yards. 215 of them were after the catch. I came away more impressed from this game. Look, I love 18 for 18. It's perfect. You can't argue with perfection. I'm just saying that I want to put more credence to look at what everybody else around Jared Goff was doing than hyper-focusing on Jared Goff was immaculate and no notes and continue to do this. And it's awesome if you want to go 18 for 18. And it's awesome if you want to throw for 200 some odd yards. But like, let's give credence to the fact that JMO caught that ball and took it all the way to the house. Let's give credence to the fact that David Montgomery absolutely little boyed Devin Witherspoon. And as Jeremy pointed out, I didn't even notice on the broadcast because I was too enamored with the fact that David Montgomery just put a guy 6 feet below the turf at Ford Field, that same guy rose from the dead and actually was the one who forced David Montgomery out of bounds.
A lot of wrestling happening in this one. That was the good wrestling.
Well, yeah, there was some lucha libre stuff that also happened with Kenneth Walker on the sideline, but I just want to give the flowers to the guys around Jared Goff. Jared Goff, phenomenal, but I think there's kind of a reason that Dan Campbell didn't give a game ball immediately to Jared Goff, because there was a bunch of other. I think that there was a bunch of other really great things that happened on that football field. First and foremost, being Ben Johnson, who called his best game of the season.
I agree very, very quickly because I know Jeremy wants to jump in, but I agree. And I think that's just, again, it's part of this paradigm shift. We can't look at quarterbacks to be in the NFL to be the saviors every game. It takes a village, Jeremy. It takes a village to make this offense run. And, we're giving flowers to Jared Goff, rightly so. But I think Ryan's point's very, very correct too, is like all these guys are part of that top to bottom. It is a unit out there. An offense is a unit. You act like a unit.
I mean, there was definitely a couple of plays where I wouldn't quite call them checkdowns, but like you're taking the shorter option and hoping you're getting yak. And basically everyone did it, right? Like Sam Laporta had a play where he cut inside, broke a tackle, and turned it into like a 25-yard game. Tim Patrick, I think both of his catches were made probably between 5 and 10 yards, and he ended up turning them into 15, 20 yards each time. But I think that's kind of the Lions offense, right? Like, I think that's Jared Goff taking what's there on purpose and then taking his deep shot here and there. And that works. That's what the Lions want to do. And I think Jared Goff peppered the middle of the field again. And you bring up Tim Patrick for a really good reason, because where were both of his catches made? crossing routes right over the middle.
Yep.
The Josh Reynolds special. Like, he is starting to slide into that role, and and Goff is figuring out the timing with him, and that's huge. That's huge.
Mm-hmm.
And so the last thing I want to say on Jared Goff's day, while we're giving praise to his supporting cast, the reason he was able to go through his progressions is because the offensive line. I thought the offensive line did a hell of a job protecting him in this game. I think I can't quite remember the specific numbers, but on his 18 dropbacks, I think NFL Pro considered 5 or 6 of them under pressure, whereas, the large majority of them weren't. And again, that's with him holding on to the ball a lot. He was sacked 3 times in this game, but I might call all 3 of those coverage sacks because he's holding on the ball very long. And again, like, this is a really good Seahawks secondary. And really the only way I think you can beat the Seahawks secondary is if you give your quarterback time. And so it's all working together. It's Ben Johnson with the play call. It's the wide receivers being patient with their routes, being smart in zone coverage, and catching the ball when it's there and catching it in stride and getting the yak. It's Jared Goff being patient going through his reads, and it's the offensive line allowing Goff to go through those reads. Absolutely complementary football on offense where all 4, 5, 6, whatever parts are all working in harmony, and that's what happens. You put up 6 touchdowns against what most people thought was the best defense in football.
The other big takeaway, and I know we're kind of, again, I think this segment we're kind of taking bird's eye view. We're going to talk some individual performances and what we want to see from the Lions figure out in the bye week here for the next segment. But we've given a lot of talk to the offense. I want to talk a little bit about the defense because once again, I feel like some fans can be a little too harsh on this defense. First off, once again, the Seattle Seahawks had 34 minutes of possession here. This is and again, that's not because of anything the Lions have done wrong on offense in this one. It's just I was saying this with the JMO drive, sometimes just scoring too quick, not giving them time to rest. I think that there's definitely some issues in form tackling but I also think a lot of these drives that people are kind of crushing the defense for, I'm going to say it right now, the big issue is penalties more than anything. And we can take away a couple of, I believe the Lions on the night had 12 penalties. Let's say 11. We can take away the JMO penalty for doing the Megatron celebration over the goalpost there. Now, of those 11, I don't remember the exact breakdown, but I believe was James Houston responsible for 2 or 3 offsides? 2 offsides. Terry and Arnold flagged 3 times, I believe, in this game.
Carlton Davis 4.
Carlton Davis had the worst assignment of the night dealing with DK Metcalf, who's like a reverse LeBron James, where he's getting the benefit of the doubt just because he's big. He can push off guys and there's no problem whatsoever, but you touch DK even once, suddenly it's Flag City. This is where I'm going to complain. I did not think the officiating last night was good at all, as evidenced by, I don't know. What do you think was going through the guy's head, Ryan, as he was watching that one touchdown and just didn't signal?
Probably in awe because it was an incredible catch by Ahmad.
It was. It was.
To be clear, there was an official right there who signaled touchdown for some reason. He blended into the background really well, and the other officials allowing
first. But look, I think there was probably a lot of chances for the Lions defense to get off the field if it wasn't just a matter of penalties in a lot of cases. And look, Geno Smith's hard to stop. Kenneth Walker is very hard to stop. The Lions definitely tried in multiple places. I think it's not a great defensive showing, but I also really get frustrated when I see fans immediately butcher the Lions defense just because it can't go 3 and out every drive. This is the NFL. Sometimes they're going to convert long thirds, and Geno Smith Ryan is still good. And he tried to play the hero in this 400 yards passing. You wish it hadn't happened, but it's still we talked about the problems with Carlton Davis and Terry and Arnold. That's tough.
You want to talk, Jeremy earlier brought up how the Seahawks might have the best secondary that the Lions are going to face all season long. Are you going to find many wide receiver corps that are better than the Seattle Seahawks?
No.
On the Lions schedule? And I know that there are a ton of talented ones around the league, but
Minnesota.
Maybe the
JS,
Vikings.
JSN and DK, Jordan Addison, whatever. He shouldn't even be playing. Tyler Lockett, like there's a bunch of just really, really good, effective threats. And you bring in Kenneth Walker, who, oh, hey, go figure. The team that's been missing Kenneth Walker for the past couple of weeks gets him back, and their offense is even better. Against the Lions defense that is known for stopping the run and bottling up guys in between the tackles and basically eliminating that aspect of the football game. I think if the Lions offense isn't so good to start this game and they don't jump out to a 14-0 lead, Seattle can probably stick around a little bit more in terms of game script and run the football a little bit more and stay committed to that. But I think that Detroit just avalanched them from the start. And that kind of led to Seattle changing things up a bit. Geno has always been good against the Lions, but he wasn't the Geno that frustrated us, I think, for so long with, oh, he's going to escape and he's going to run and pick up a first down. When did Geno do that last night? You know what I mean? Like, I thought the Lions... I thought the Lions were incredibly disciplined.
Down play, right? Where he
had like a 12-yard scamper, I think, yeah.
He escaped that sack from Kirby Joseph and then threw a threaded needle through, like, three defenders. Yeah. It was an incredible play.
Oh, for sure. And I think that's part of the discourse that's going on with Goff and Geno right now is like Geno's pulling off plays like that, whereas when Jared Goff is running a route in the flat, it's like, oh my God, and you're throwing it to him? But as he pointed out on Instagram, # late hands.
That's right.
Yeah, but the defense, though, I think we get a little bit too caught up in, there's 29 points on the board. Well, 2 of them came from the offense, but also, like, I'll live with what Carlton Davis is doing at cornerback.
Mm-hmm.
I will 100% live with that because I think that of any of the ticky-tack penalties you want to, ascribe to anybody last night, Carlton Davis is going up against a guy who thinks he's Shaquille O'Neal, to Chris's point, but people were hanging on for dear life and fouling Shaquille O'Neal. DK Metcalf acts like Teddy when I take away a toy that he just threw at me. You know what I mean?
I cannot think of a singular more frustrating wide receiver for that reason to cover than DK Metcalf.
He's a big dude. Like, he's super imposing. And I think that there's something to the fact that they went up against Tampa Bay. Carlton Davis did his job against Mike Evans. A couple weeks later, Carlton Davis up against DK Metcalf. You're going against heavy hitters.
Yeah.
Heavy hitters. It's an upgrade from Cam Sutton a year ago.
No question. And like, throwing Terrion into this conversation too, because Tyler Lockett is not an easy guy to cover. And I don't know, holding Tyler Lockett to 5 catches for 61 yards on 9 targets, I think that's okay. In general, I think I would absolutely prefer this handsy, physical group of corners that are not giving up wide open touchdowns, wide open receptions very often, but are getting flagged 2-3 times a game over the alternative, which is guys that can't keep up with these players, that they're getting, biting on bad routes and route fakes and things like that. I'll take this group over that. They'll get better as time goes on. They're not going to be as unlucky with some of these penalties. Let's call it what it is. It's generally ticky-tacky calls that we've seen through 4 weeks. It's not all that. Like, you've earned some of this. There's no doubt about it. It's even on Monday night, where I think most people thought the officiating was poor, they earned some of it, right? There's holding, there's jerseys being pulled, there's arms being tugged, there's hands being held, whatever. It's happening, but I think we can all agree that pass interference, defensive holding, that stuff is being a little bit over officiated right now across the league, and the Lions seem to be on the butt end of that overall for whatever reason.
And I think there's definitely still some bright spots to go here. Like, we continue to see Aiden Hutchinson look better and better. Now he's still getting like clotheslined every play, but he's got 3 quarterbacks hit in this game. Amik Robertson, I thought, played fantastic, in the spots where he had to step up. We saw Malcolm Rodriguez kind of get involved here too. I feel like there were opportunities between, if you just avoided a couple penalties, and maybe if there's a couple plays too that were just missed, like Anzalone had that surefire interception in the end zone, we could be talking about a very different outlook for this defense. instead of one being like, oh, you gave up 27 yards. The Seahawks got to stick around for the entire game. I just don't see it like that. They held serve with the Seahawks. They limited damage, and just sometimes this is the NFL. Sometimes you're just going to get into one of these high scoring games. And, I think there's a script to this that doesn't end, that ends with even less points from the Seahawks is what I'm saying. And I see it where the Lions are working on that.
I don't want to completely excuse the defensive performance in this game, but I do think their plan generally worked, which was, let's keep everything in front of us. Let's make the Seahawks run these 8, 9, 10 play drives and have them beat us that way. And listen, the Seahawks, to their credit, did a lot of that. I thought they called a brilliant game plan in the second half. They were very one-dimensional in the first half, where I think they only ran the ball 4 times, and the Lions held them to 7 points, right? But then the Seahawks kind of found out, all right, we're not even going to try to run the ball up the middle. That's a bad idea. It doesn't work against this team. They found ways to attack the edges, and I think that's where the Lions had the most struggles in the game entirely. It was on the edges in the run game. And once Seattle figured that out, they became a much more dangerous team. They ran more play action. They ran more run plays. We saw Kenneth Walker kind of take over, and I think that's where the Lions still need to make a defensive adjustment. And listen, like, part of that is they're trying to live in a post Derek Barnes, post Marcus Davenport world right now, and they're still figuring that out. They're still figuring out, maybe Ben Neiman isn't the Sam linebacker. Maybe we need to get a nickel in there more often to help compensate with the lack of a good Sam linebacker, with the lack of someone holding the edge there. That's something that the Lions, they're going to spend a couple weeks to figure that out. Hopefully Derek Barnes comes back after 4 weeks, but I don't know. The way it sounded, it could be longer than a 4-week injury. But listen, like, that's okay. It's okay to start figuring things out. They didn't have a plan B at Sam, unfortunately. It was not for a lack of trying in training camp. They basically ran every guy they possibly could out there, and it wasn't working. But now they have to experiment with it, and it's not always going to work out well. But I was way back when I was trying to spin this into something positive, and I think that the point there is that, one, when this game was on the line, the defense made plays. The last 3 drives from Seattle was punt, turnover on downs, interception. That's pretty damn good. And they had so many other opportunities in this game, it felt like, to get off the field. And it took a crazy lateral play for Seattle to convert a 3rd and 16. It took that aforementioned Geno Smith getting out of a Kirby Joseph sack and threading a ball in between a couple of defenders to convert a 3rd and 10 or 12 or whatever it was. Like, it took a couple miraculous plays for the Seahawks to even stay in this game. So overall, I think the defensive performance looks a lot better than a 500-yard performance and 38 first downs and crazy stats that they put up. But I think you also have to remember that this team was playing from behind the entire game. They were airing it out. And I don't know how many yards of that was in the fourth quarter, where, I mean, you can't quite call them garbage time yardage, but 161 in the fourth quarter alone.
Let's just play the game we did again in the Tampa game, right, Ryan? They had 500 yards of offense and only 27 points.
Yeah, I'm generally impressed with what the Lions have been able to do on defense, and there's part of the element of they're building the plane in the air. They haven't had Derek Barnes for not even a week at this point, right? Like, they were doing all of this stuff on the fly. No Brian Branch.
Yeah, and
I mean, no Branch.
What a big difference that would make on the edges when it comes to run defense, right? Like, go figure.
And how much
you
of
don't
their
have
game
Brian
plan
Branch.
did they have? How much of their game plan did they have to throw out? Because they went in that entire week assuming Brian Branch was going to play, right? He was basically through protocol early in the week, and so you get the news Sunday morning. Now what do you do? And I wish I had asked Dan Campbell that question. Like, how much did you have to alter your game plan, knowing your best run defender in the box from the secondary, which, again, like, that could have played a huge factor in some of these runs to the outside. Brian Branch was absolutely needed in this game, but no offense to Brandon Joseph, he isn't the same guy. And yes, eventually they did get it done, and that really should be the only thing that matters.
The only thing that matters to us in this bye week is Righteous Felon craft jerky and meat sticks because it fuels us. It keeps us nice and happy, proteined up. We got 2-ounce bags of jerky with 16 and 20 grams of protein, meat sticks with 8 grams. We got all our favorite flavors here. Trust me, if it's good enough for us, it's good enough for you too. I have gotten to the point with my Righteous Felon that I have decided to throw down the gauntlet and threatened to fight a friend because he did not think that Truffalo Bill was the best flavor. I have to reevaluate my friendship there. That's how strongly we feel about this stuff. Listen, we're not the reason why we do these long off the cuff reads, which Ryan sometimes comes in on, sometimes regrets when I try to loop him in, is that we all like this stuff. We actually like this stuff. They are paying us, but also it's good jerky. And everyone who we tell to buy this jerky, they buy the jerky and they like it, Ryan. They really like it. Like Mike.
They buy more and they buy more of it.
That's right. And we're going to help you buy more. Righteous Felon is based in Westchester, Pennsylvania, using locally sourced all-natural Black Angus beef, superior quality, revolutionary branding, unique flavors that go beyond the stereotypical jerky offering. And for our listeners, you will get 15% off your order, any size, at righteousfelon.com. Use the promo code POD15, POD15 at checkout. You'll get 15% off your order. Yes, Jeremy.
I want to be like actually super genuine in this moment to talk about Righteous Felon because I've been kind of like health conscious a little bit over the past year, and I've lost like 20-ish pounds, and I'm like 5 away from my goal weight. And you know, macros is like the big thing, right? It's basically like protein and calories in, calories out. Like those are the things that you should be paying attention to. And for a while, I started to get into like protein bars and things like that, which I think are a scam. First of all, like they're expensive. They don't taste very good. They don't fill you up that much, and
it's a lot of sugars half the time.
A lot of times it's like 200 calories and 10-15 grams of protein. That's you compare that to a bag of beef jerky, which is way more satisfying, tasty, comes in all these cool flavors. It's like 120 calories and 20 grams of protein in a bag. And I'm not going to finish a whole bag of beef jerky. Like, I don't know. If you're a snacker,
save the half for another time. Yeah.
If you're a snacker, Righteous Felon beef jerky is honestly like a really good, healthy option.
And they have turkey jerky that doesn't suck. I think that's my favorite part about it, as we have known through the years, trying to get our hands on Foul Capone, their turkey jerky flavored with pepper and basil, among other flavors. It is the best turkey jerky you will have, period. Hard stop. I haven't found anyone else who comes close to it. POD15 at checkout. Go to righteousfelon.com. Get yourself some bags. Get yourself some macros. When we come back on the Pride of Detroit POD cast, a few individual performances, what to do about some situations with some of the players out there like James Houston and Terrion Arnold, and what should we look towards with the bye week for the Detroit Lions. That's next on the POD cast. Well, we're 35 minutes in and nothing seems to have shit the bed yet.
0 dropped frames so far. So fingers crossed it continues that way. Before the stream craps out on us, let me get through all the alerts real quick, and then we can hang out with chat. I'll try. All right. Nick the Greek 100 bits says Matt Patricia sweet and savory flapjack bosoms. AP Rambo 44 months says go Tigers. Woodchuck Hunter
baseball cats
says only thing missing last night was a flea flicker. Why do you think they won? No flea flicker. Izzy 39 months subscribed on Twitch. Really makes you think. Says LFG Tigers and Lions. Nick the Greek 100 bit says Carlton Davis had chartered a stripper bus and is going to reenact Jerry Jones's 2014 playoff wooing of Dean Blandino. Not a bad idea. Carlton Davis's quotes at the end of the game were phenomenal. Where he's saying, like, I love that man. I don't know what I got to do. Do I need to start following these guys on Instagram or?
I love that man.
The suggestion I propose is that pass interference should be called from the booth. There's no way these guys who look like they need glasses to drive an automobile should be calling pass interference.
The only guy who should be allowed to call pass interference on the field is that one guy who kept up with, was it Tyreek Hill?
No, with Jetta. Justin Jefferson.
Right. Justin Jefferson. That one official is the only one allowed to call pass interference.
Only guy.
J. Russ, 35 months, says Detroit. I don't
think
I said that in the basketball, but it just says Detroit. Go Play 9, 16 months subscribed to us on Twitch. Jason F. 65, 18 months, says woo Detroit sports. D-Man, 46
we talk
months.
about, sorry, this is super quick. We talk about April in the D. I think it's about time to start having October in the D.
When does hockey and basketball start?
Well, hockey's already started, hasn't it?
Well,
No.
Is it preseason?
Starts I think in like a week or so.
I got like a million hockey alerts last night. Were they playing 2 games at the same time? Is there like a split squad type of thing? Because it just like it kept going. I'm trying to watch the game on my phone while the game is also in front of me. Yeah, everyone's saying yes in the chat. It was annoying the crap out of me. I'm like, how are they getting blown out by the Penguins, but also like neck and neck with some other team?
NBA season starts last week, like October 23rd, 24th. Pistons play October 23rd. Sorry if that sounds like a threat.
Yahoo Sports app, don't send me notifications for goals in the preseason. I don't need them. That's all I'm saying. All right. D-Man, I think I said that, but 46 months, appreciate you. 21 Kizzle, 7 months, says big win, LFG. Key Rock, 18 months subscribed to the channel. Summer Guy, 24 months subscribed to the channel. Nick the Greek, another 100 bits, says breaking. Now, I'm not reading this in my own breaking voice. This is Nick the Greek. Kelly Stafford takes credit for Jared Goff's 18 for 18 plus receiving touchdown performance on her most recent podcast. Also compares Governor Gretsch to Joseph Stalin again. Great. Rebuilding since 1957, 16 months subscribed to the channel. Nick the Greek, 100 bits, says DK Metcalf cried to the ref so much that his mascara was ruined halfway through the first quarter. Another 100 bits from Nick the Greek says, I never realized that the DK and DK Metcalf stood for disgruntled Karen. Blade Icewood, thank you for subscribing on YouTube. LJ, 53 months subscribed. Beamer, 7 months subscribed. Slyest Rye, I know that guy, 33 months subscribed to the channel. Austin Mammoth, 25 months subscribed, says, Jeremy, did you buy the Mrs. Incredible Fortnite skin?
I heard she got nerfed.
Did she?
Budget cuts?
I'm not entering this conversation. I have not played Fortnite really. I think since training camp. Football is life.
I got into this early access game called Witchfire from, of all people, the Vanishing of Ethan Carter devs. And although I'm like preparing for my mom to come to town, I'm having way too much fun with it. Anyway, sorry, continue. We're trying to get through these.
2 more. We're almost done.
Oh my
Kick
God.
Puncher, thank you for the 11 months, as I assume you guys saw the Sauce Gardner tweet. Thoughts? Go Detroit Big Cats. Yeah, so I think Sauce, he said something about Tyrion, right? Like that he's too low in his stance or something.
Yeah, he's talking about like pre-snap, like where he like needs to have his body positioned. So it's interesting. We should talk about it maybe.
We'll talk about that. Should we? Can I talk real quick, since that brought up the Aiden Hutchinson getting thrown out because people, like, I guess, speaking of trying to be too low in his position, the refs being like, "Are you hurt?"
Yeah, that was an interesting one. I don't think I've seen anything like that before, but yeah, I assume Aiden Hutchinson was just trying to play coy and trying to like blend in by being on the ground on his knees, and the officials are like, "No, you got to leave. You're hurt."
Well, I think it's
Justin Fields play from a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
I think after both teams get 12 men on the field penalties, it kind of becomes like we're going to start counting heads out here.
Yeah, I don't know. It was a weirdly officiated game. I don't think it was as bad as most people are saying. I didn't realize this was a mild controversy until I saw it on Seahawks Twitter today. But a lot of people thought that DK Metcalf's 2-point conversion was good. That he got either his leg, both feet in, or his knee in. And
Yeah, like I think a shin,
yeah.
maybe. Yeah.
Can we? I didn't understand why they even ran that play to begin with. I don't understand the math behind it. I don't understand why they thought that that was a good spot to run a 2-point conversion.
It was too early in the game, but the general idea behind being down 8 and going for 2 is that it almost works better if I have a flow chart here. But basically, in the NFL, it's a 50-50 proposition if you make a 2-point conversion. It's generally a 100% chance you make an extra point. Now, these are gross over-exaggerations of numbers, but it's the easiest way to explain it. So if you make your first 2-point conversion, that means the next time you score a touchdown, it's for the win. If you miss the 2-point conversion, you can make it on the second try, and it's a tie game, and you go into overtime with a 50% chance to win the game. So in the scenarios in which you score 2 touchdowns, you have, if you score on the first one, which is a 50% chance, you win the game, essentially, if you score 2 touchdowns. If you don't, in the other 50% chance, well, there's still a 50% chance that you convert the next one and go into overtime. So that's 25% of the scenarios. So you already have 50% of the scenarios in which you win, 25% of the scenarios in which you go into overtime, and then 50% of those 25, so 12.5% chance of the time you go into overtime and you
these
win.
Percentages.
I know. So it's 50 plus 12.5%, 62.5% chance of winning the game if you go for 2 first. Whereas if you kick the extra points both times, you're going into overtime where it's a 50-50 split.
Okay, cool, I guess. I don't think it was a smart decision at that point.
The problem with how the Seahawks ran it is you only do that if you're convinced the only way you win the game is through 2 touchdowns and nothing else. There was still a full quarter to play where there could be more field goals, there could be more touchdowns. It doesn't really work that way that early in the game. So I'm with you. I don't think it made a lot of sense in that context, but analytic guys swear by this, and most head coaches have fallen in line that if there's 5 minutes left in the game and you're down 2 touchdowns, after you score that first touchdown, you go for 2.
That's fair. I don't think it's been working lately, but like the Packers did it Sunday.
Yep.
I'm assuming the same logic for it. Yep. And I just don't.
And they made it, right? They made the first 2-point conversion. So if they had scored again and prevented the Vikings from scoring again, which they didn't, then they could have won in regulation and stolen a huge game.
No.
Which I'm glad you brought up that game because I want to talk about it a little bit. Not because I want to say like the Vikings are great or the Packers suck or anything like that, but as a reminder to everyone in the NFL that closing out a football team, especially a good football team, is not easy. It is not easy. So whether the Lions are jumping out to a lead against the Cardinals or the Seahawks or whatever, to close out a good team and to continue to blow them out through 4 quarters is nearly impossible. It just doesn't happen to good teams very often. So let's not assume. Let's not act like the Lions never blow anybody out. Like
I was getting that
team. Like no, relax. It's not easy to do.
Ryan, I don't know what you're hearing from fans, but I definitely got some iterations of that as why can the Lions never just blow a team out comfortably? Like that kind of argument. And I'm just sitting there. I'm like, the Seahawks are really fucking good. Like we need to stop. Like it's like, well, why can't we just ever blow out someone comfortably? You can't just put teams away. Like the game this isn't, I keep going back to this line. I know it's demeaning, but I'm going to use it because I'm frustrated. This isn't college football. Teams don't roll over when you put them down multiple scores. And a lot of the best teams out there are going to find ways to swing the games, get things back in their favor and claw back hell or high water. And most importantly, the NFL has engineered everything because they want close end of games. So like, I find I want a blowout people just very frustrating to deal with.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, you look no further than out on the West Coast. I mean, it was, I think, into the 3rd quarter, and it looked like San Francisco had put away New England. They were up 20-3, like right after the start of the half, and then the Patriots are only down 27-13 and they just picked off the 49ers and they could go make it a one-score game. Like that happens all over the place. And you're talking about a team that's led by Jacoby Brissett and one of the worst offensive lines I've ever seen playing the NFC representative for the Super Bowl last year. Like it blowing teams out. Like if I had to think about the last like Lions blowout, it's Carolina, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Carolina's an inept franchise. Like those are the teams that you can roll over. Like you can roll over the New York Giants or
the Titans.
And Carolina, Carolina was taking the Bengals to the wire.
Yeah. I mean, listen.
That's the Red Rifle. That's a whole different discussion. That was a revenge game for Mr. Andy Dalton. But the one last thing I want to say about the Lions and putting the Seahawks away is, and I think Dan talked about it or at least alluded to it a lot in his press conference today, was like it was just complimentary football. Like the defense had kind of carried this football team for 3 weeks, and when the defense wasn't at its best, guess what? The offense finally flipped the switch, and it's like, it's really hard to beat a football team that on any given week, just one side of you're counting on one side of the ball to show up all the way.
Yeah.
Like you're going to get like you're going to get the best punch from Detroit on any given week, whether or not it's on defense or it's on offense. And this just happened to be the week that it was the offense. And I think the defensive stuff is overblown, but like, I don't know. Like,
and in this game, it felt like every time that the offense had a slip up, the defense was there to rebound, right?
Jack Campbell fumble that,
to open the game too, right? Like, Lions, you said, the Lions take the ball, they go 3 and out, and you're like, oh, shit. Well, the defense gets you the ball back after 4 plays.
You score. Yeah.
The failed 3rd and 1 conversion, where suddenly I think that the Seahawks are getting the ball back in a 7-point game. Lions get a stop. Every time where it was just like, the offense isn't playing the perfect game where they need to. The defense is like, don't worry, we still got a little bit in us.
Yeah, which is just such a far cry from where we were 2 years ago, right? 2 years ago in 2022, down that stretch where the Lions played incredible football, they were 8-2 down that 10-game stretch. I remember vividly thinking, my God, if the Lions offense isn't going to show up, it's curtains.
Right.
And it's
look how many 4th downs they were taking back then. Like, I mean, and clearly I know a lot of people say that that's just Dan Campbell being aggressive, but I think he's shown a lot more trust in his defense now lately, Ryan. He doesn't need to take those kind of risks as much.
Yeah, I mean, he ran a fake punt on like inside his own 20-yard line in week 2. I mean,
that is fair. That is fair.
Dan's still lying in wait, I think. But I think that there is something, Chris, to the fact that here's a situation from last night. Going into the half, there's the penalty where they could have accepted it. And I don't know if you want to. Hey, these refs are throwing flags for pass interference. Why not try to get one more and get yourself into field goal position?
They're not throwing it on the Lions receivers ever.
Yeah.
When's the last time the Lions benefited from a defensive pass interference call? Legitimately.
I don't know.
This is going back. I know he's not a receiver, but there seems to be certain players on the Lions who are like invisible to refs, and it could be Hutch, could be a receiver. Sorry, go on, Ryan.
Sure. No, I get my point though is that there was an opportunity to be like, okay, like maybe try to scam a few points out of this gift that the Seahawks have given you when you're going into halftime, and who's coming out? The defense, because you took the ball at the beginning of the game. Dan Campbell's like, let's just go to halftime.
Yeah.
We'll come out of the half and we'll get a stop. I mean, that didn't happen. The Seahawks scored 3 straight touchdowns to start the half, but
is there really a path to scoring though when you're starting on your own 40-yard line with 2 seconds left?
A penalty.
A penalty is the only way, and I don't know.
Well,
or as they're saying, let Batesy kick like an 80-yarder.
An 80-yarder.
Look, man. Someone kicked like what, a 65-yarder on Sunday, Ryan?
Yeah. Koo had the game winner on Sunday.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 58. 58.
Yeah, it was his
Like
career long, I think.
Someone's pointing out 50 plus is just no longer a problem in the NFL. Like, these guys have just legs that are booming. It is
extra points weren't a problem last night for Jake Bates. Perfect,
including a 48-yarder.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, as many people on Twitter joked about getting him in a more comfortable range.
I don't know about that. That's the longest kick he's ever made at the professional level.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can I ask a non-Lions question? Let's talk. Just
do you want me to
NFL?
read the first two alerts first, or should I wait?
Yes.
The last two.
Yeah,
alerts,
that's a good transition into a question I have for Lions fans. It's for all Lions fans watching as well.
Great. Monty Too Hottie with the 35-month subscribe to the channel says Red Wings season opener is October 10th, so just over a week away.
October in the D.
And then Brad Holmes' Bulge, 12 months subscribe to the channel. Brad Holmes' Bulge, you were the first person that introduced me to the Bulge Army, which has taken a life of its own, and I'm going to be honest, makes me very uncomfortable, and not in like a weird homophobic way, just like, I don't know. There's too many of you that are proud of that name. But you're cool because you're the OG.
Anyway.
That's all I'm saying.
So I like doing this every time the Lions play a Monday night game. What were you guys watching on Sunday? Because I have the benefit, when I'm at FSR, of having about like 5 different TVs. And for whatever reason, even though I had Vikings, Packers, Rams, Bears, Saints, Falcons, and I think Steelers, Colts for 4 of those TVs. By the way, Joe Flacco's back, in case anyone had to wonder about that. Somehow I found myself most engrossed by probably the most disgusting game of football I've seen all year. And that was on the 5th TV, and that was Jets Broncos.
Ew, no, I don't want to talk about that at all.
Yeah, but the afternoon games were kind of ass, right? Like, I don't recall anything happening in those Was that the game?
Commanders blew out the Cardinals. That was 49ers, Patriots, Raiders, Browns, but Chiefs, Chargers, but early slate is usually the best slate. But
yeah.
No, I'm just curious what everyone was watching on Sunday when it wasn't the Lions.
My setup was Red Zone on the main TV. I believe I had Packers, Vikings on the computer, and then I had Bears, Rams on my phone. And
you said that in such a relegated way.
Yeah, because it's just like, oh yeah, that game's happening too. It was not, that also was not a very pretty game. And through the first half, I'm like, how are the Rams losing this football game? And then in the second half, the Bears' offense actually started to come a little bit alive. I'm like, I hate this.
Just checking on your exes on your phone, huh?
Yeah,
DeAndre Swift and Matthew Stafford.
Oh, God. Yeah, DeAndre Swift finally woke up like how in that second half of the game, realized he had to play football.
My God, there was the screen pass from Caleb Williams where the announcers were losing their minds and going, change to the preseason. I'm like, guys, we got to relax. Like, poor Matthew Stafford out there with Kyron Williams and not a lot else. Like
nothing.
Since the Super Bowl, I don't think that guy has enjoyed a game of football since. Like, he's just getting beat the hell up.
Oh God, he's getting smacked around.
Yeah, so bad. All of his receivers are dying. I like that poor man. Everything he has to deal with on and off the field.
And it's so frustrating to see it against the Bears, too, because, it's like, oh, man, we've lived that as well. And it's like things aren't going any better in this, like, phase of Matthew Stafford's career. And it's just infuriating to watch the Chicago Bears play football because Caleb Williams is doing everything he possibly can to not win football games. And the Bears defense is somehow finding a way to do things.
It's a good defense. This is like it's straight 2000 Chicago Bears. How are they still succeeding in a way 20 years in the past where their defense is somehow good enough to win them ball games, and then like a random special teams play will happen in their favor too?
The Aaron Paul gif, man. How do they keep getting away with it?
Yeah,
but
although the getting away with it with the Chicago Bears is going 7-10.
Yeah, well, I hope so, but I think it's your concern at the beginning of every season, Jeremy, where it's like, and Chris, I watched primarily I watched a lot of Bears Rams because it was the game that was on Fox, and I felt
Okay.
interested to watch that game in the least bit. But like, um, the to Jeremy's point, usually it's like, man, I don't want to play the rookie quarterback in the second half of the season, and it's like the Bears defense is obviously where it is right now, and it's like, will the Bears figure it out though? Because
I don't know if they're going to figure it. They're not going to figure it out
bad.
like 100%, but they're going to be better. They're going to be better.
It's just not turnkey. Like, and
Yes.
I think that a lot of people fell into that pitfall, Chris, of, well, Caleb Williams is Mahomes like and he's generational and X, Y, and Z. And it's not always turnkey, even though
Right.
you put Keenan Allen around him and DeAndre Swift. Like, there's just a
And Roma
lot
Dunze, who's going to be good for them. Yeah.
There's a lot that's going on there.
I think it all comes back to, again, too, that O-line is just not going to do any favors. And ultimately, like, you're dealing with a coach who's not going to be there for a long time. I don't know anyone who thinks Matt Eberflus is going to be saving his job with this season. I'm not sure why he was brought back, other than the Bears just don't want to get rid of a coach mid-season. Like, look, I see the flashes in Caleb Williams, but yeah, there's definitely a problem of, like, he's still trying to put things together, and also, like, the rest of this offense isn't good, and he's going to have the spooks as any young quarterback in the NFL. I don't know why we thought that wasn't going to be the case out there. But people gas up Caleb a little bit too much in that front. I don't know. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do with this whole division right now. Because I don't think any of us had the Vikings starting out 4-0 and Sam Darnold looking like an MVP candidate.
Matt Mayoko did.
I also didn't think there was a world in hell where Jordan Love came back in week 4. Well, that seems fugazi. But
I think there's a question to whether that should have been the right decision.
Yeah.
Seems like it was a mistake.
But
seems like quarterback was the least of their issues.
Can we talk about the Vikings real quick? I don't know if you were planning on talking about it on the podcast.
No,
I'd rather talk about it here because
Yeah.
I'm not so convinced that everyone else is convinced that the Sam Darnold magic is going to wear off. Because
hold on, wait, say that again.
I'm not as convinced as a lot of people are that the Sam Darnold magic is going to wear off.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you. I've heard some takes where people are like, just wait, he's going to show his true colors. How he's playing right now and the pieces around him. I'm not going to compare him to Jared Goff, but how many times do we have to see between Jared Goff, Geno Smith,
Baker Mayfield,
maybe Andy Dalton, where it's like, hey man, give these guys another chance. Maybe actually give them some good weapons to work with. And suddenly, like, damn, okay. What did I do?
I don't know. I'm curious as to what Ryan.
We're just naming all those quarterbacks, and we didn't say Matthew Stafford.
Oh,
well,
how dare you? I thought you were going the Malik Willis route first of all.
No, that's low hanging fruit, my friend. But here's the thing: it's definitely not what happened last year with Josh Dobbs and the Minnesota Vikings. You know what I mean? Like, I think that there was this sense that, like, oh, this is magic and this is really fun, and then that was all fugazi. Josh Dobbs wasn't a first round draft pick, a top 10 pick. He wasn't ever
a number 1
thought
pick,
of being a franchise quarterback. Sam Darnold, he wasn't number 1.
Was he? Or was he like number 2? What was he? I thought he was a number 3. Excuse me, he was number 3.
Yeah, but still the thing that worries me the most though about the Vikings is their defense.
Yeah,
like
Brian Flores. Is crazy.
Yeah, I mean he's Mike McDonald, but and that's something else too. I think maybe we should talk about in the second half of the podcast. Like, it's kind of tough when you're missing studs along the defensive line. Like, you're undermanned. Sure. But we also saw a Vikings defense that was undermanned last season, and it didn't matter because Brian Flores is a freaking psychopath. So like, maybe we underrated the Stephon Gilmore move. We're like, okay, the guy just went to go get a bag. It's like, oh, okay. But there's also the flip side of that is their secondary is very old.
Yeah.
Like, how sustainable is it to have, like, gosh, I think like 3 of their starting defensive backs are like 29 and older, and
Harrison Smith is going to be 40.
Stephon, I mean, these are old. I mean, he got it wasn't him that got butt flipped on. It was Sendejo. I forgot. We debunked that.
But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting because I also feel like their defense got off to a hot start last year, and then kind of towards the end, they were getting torched a little bit. Like the Lions torched the Vikings defense really in both games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Look, you let the Packers get back in this game. They had 22 points in the fourth quarter. Like, they definitely left the door open for Green Bay. Yeah.
I think, but divisional games are also different, right? Like Brian Flores.
Yeah, absolutely.
People know Brian Flores' defense the best inside the division. And so it'll be interesting because the one thing that, their biggest loss this offseason, I thought, was Danielle Hunter. And some of the guys they've replaced him with look even better so far. I think they have 3 guys with 4 sacks.
I don't know how you've got Andrew Van Ginkel playing at this level.
Van Ginkel's been playing out of his freaking mind.
Out of his mind.
It's a really interesting team, and I had them completely wrong this offseason. I thought they were not by far, but I thought they were going to be the worst team in the division. But I think I underestimated the one thing that I think is proved the most important in the division, and that's coaching. The coaching staff in this division are second to none outside the Chicago Bears, because you have Malik Willis coming in 2 weeks with the Packers and balling out to 2 wins, because you have Sam Darnold, whose career was thrown aside by a couple franchises now, and he comes in and looks like an MVP candidate, because you have defensive geniuses in Brian Flores and who's the Bears? I don't know. I guess Eberflus. Is Eberflus a defensive guy? Why am I?
He's a defensive guy. Shane Waldron's their OC. I forget who the Bears DC is. Well,
if it's Eberflus, it's Eberflus, right?
It's Eric. Yeah. It's Eric Washington. It doesn't really matter.
I think Eberflus is a good defensive coach. I don't think he's a good head coach.
No.
But anyways, like it's just there's some really smart guys who can make decent or okay rosters look great. And the Lions are very much part of that too, although I think they obviously have the best roster of anyone in the division. But I don't think you can say enough good things about the Lions coaching staff. So it's a really impressive division. It's going to be super entertaining. And I don't think at this point I think they're going to produce 3 playoff teams. I do.
I've got questions about how well the Packers can keep all of this on the tracks right now.
Well, okay, let's go division by division in the NFC and tell me who's going to produce 2 playoff teams. The NFC. Let's start with the NFC East. Washington looks like
one team.
Is it going to be Washington then? So no Eagles, no Cowboys.
Definitely no Eagles. The Cowboys are the wild card.
Whoa, I have that inverse. I feel like the Eagles have a chance. The Cowboys do not.
The Eagles are playing just miserably right now.
Well, they're not a very good matchup for Tampa Bay though. Like we knew that last year, and then
I know,
happened again for the second time around.
That Saints game was brutal. They lose to the Falcons the way they did. Like I know I'm a little biased. I have an Eagles fan.
They won the Saints game.
Yeah, but that was a really ugly game. Like they had to turn around and score all their points in the fourth quarter. Like
okay, but it was also a Saints team that had they put up 40 plus burgers.
I just don't know anyone who's close to the Eagles who are happy with how they're running the ball on both sides right now.
I'm not saying they're a great football team, but great football teams aren't always the wild card. You think it's the Cowboys and they're going to be without Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence for all this time, and they don't have a running game at all?
I don't know. I just will give I just still think the Cowboys have a better chance for it than the Eagles do right now. I'm going purely vibes.
I'll bet you a dinner on it if you want.
A dinner? When am I ever going to? Are you going to come out here?
Well, I mean, like, if you're ever back in Toledo, I mean,
Sure.
there's
You know what?
Venmo
spot.
exists.
There is that sushi spot. We do need to hit that. The last time we tried hitting the sushi spot, it was closed for Christmas.
It was, yeah.
So-
But
I do agree with Will on Twitter or YouTube, that the vibes in Philly are just awful.
They
right
are
now.
miserable. That's my entire argument. Yeah.
I don't like Sirianni. I don't know. I think the Eagles fans are starting to turn on him, and maybe rightfully so. There's been some weird ending to game choices by that team.
Their offense is completely predicated on whether AJ Brown is healthy right now. Like I know Saquon's having a couple explosive games, but like without AJ Brown, I don't think they know how to pass the ball.
they're out without Devonta Smith too. That's right.
Devontae Smith
right?
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like they're lashing out at Darius. Like fans are lashing out at Darius Slay because Darius Slay is running his mouth on Twitter. He's done that for his entire career.
Shocker.
But Eagles fans, I don't know. I saw like one of the most viewed articles this week came from like Bleeding Green Nation, just like Darius Slay bragging about how good he is after a Eagles blowout loss or something. I'm just like, oh boy, the vibes are very bad in Philly right now.
So yeah, are we just going to do this on if one gets in the playoff or who has the worst record? How are we going to do this?
No, it's trying to identify how many wild card teams and where they're coming from.
Yeah,
so there's three obviously in the NFC.
Yeah.
We're thinking maybe one comes from the NFC
Maybe
East.
one from the East, right?
NFC South. The Bucks are currently leading with a 3-1 record. The Falcons and Saints are both 2-2. The Panthers aren't going to make it.
I think there's an outside chance for the Saints to make it. Like the last two.
The narrative could not have flipped more after the first 2 weeks.
Yeah.
They're
They're about to go through a murderer row too. They're about to have Chiefs and then Bucks, and then turn around and take on Broncos for Thursday night. And it is the Broncos, but that's a short rest game.
They still somehow not somehow. I think we know why, but they have a 57-point differential, a positive 57-point differential, which is tied for the best in the NFL.
Yeah, they started a surplus.
Yes. But now we're looking at those teams. One was Carolina. One is a Dallas team that has not looked very impressive so far. I don't want to discount blowout wins in the NFL because we just got done talking about how hard they're to come by. But
I also don't want to call Clint Kubiak like the next offensive genius after 2 games.
Right. So again, like maybe a wild card from the NFC South. I'm not very confident in the NFC South.
I'm not confident on the Falcons at all.
I think the Bucks are going to run away with that division in the long run.
Yeah. I think the Bucks might be one of the best teams in the NFC right now.
I kind of think so too.
Like I made this point on Twitter, and now that Aaron Donald no longer casts a shadow over the league, when you say who's the best defensive player in the NFL, you always have to say Aaron Donald. I think it's Vita Vea now. I think it's Vita Vea.
I didn't see this was his first game back from injury, right? This past week. I didn't see what he did.
No, it wasn't anything he did specifically. It's just that's what I believe of Vita Vea. Pound for pound, probably the best defensive player in the NFL.
NFC West, I think, has a pretty good argument right now for 2 playoff teams, the Seahawks and the 49ers.
I think there's an outside shot at 3.
Real quick, Vita Vea, 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss, and a quarterback hit in this game.
There you go. Nice. Do you think the Cardinals or the Rams are going to turn it around?
The Rams.
Yeah, you think the Cardinals are a little bit of fool's gold just from one good game?
Kinda, a little bit. No,
I mean the Rams just got to get healthy, right? Like,
are we okay with the 49ers? Are we like fully okay with them right now?
I think
they're going to make they're going to make the playoffs. Obviously, like the Christian McCaffrey stuff is very concerning, and I don't know when /
Jordan Mason.
Jordan Mason, nothing compared to McCaffrey. Mr. Running backs don't matter. Christian McCaffrey matters.
I want to say, Jeremy, that like it's great that you've come around a little bit. That running backs, I think that you understand that running backs do matter a little bit. But there's like a running back renaissance going on right now, right? Because of all the cover 2 stuff. Like, running backs really matter. Like, the 49ers have been okay, it was cute with Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson and some of these part-time guys, but like they make the trade for Christian McCaffrey and I think that there was a loud group of people that were like, you can do this with UDFAs and seventh rounders. Like,
right.
it's like, oh, but it's much different with Christian McCaffrey in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean, even if there's anything that's keeping the Eagles afloat on offense, it's the fact that
Saquon Barkley.
they got thick legs in there, like absolutely, taking care of business in a different way. And the Detroit freaking Lions, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
having good running backs, like it's the Greg Rosenthal tweet that I always love to kind of dunk on, but it's like, on draft day where he's like, well, I don't think is there that big of a difference between Jamal Williams, DeAndre Swift, and David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs? It's like, well, actually, there's a massive chasm between those two things.
There cannot be a team more sick than the New York Giants. Watching what Saquon Barkley is doing here after they crapped on him, cast him off, and decided, you know what, we'll be fine with Devin Singletary.
Yeah. That's
again. You want to talk about trusting a quarterback versus trusting a full offense.
Even, and this is kind of strange, but like the Green Bay Packers, like they were really able to sustain themselves for 2 weeks, aside from the incredible quarterback play. But like Josh Jacobs, like okay, like he's a really great running back in Vegas with the Raiders, and like, I don't know. There's a little bit of a running back renaissance going on, and I'm all for it because I love it. But
you want to talk about on the other side, Aaron Jones going to Minnesota. What do you have? 140 yards scrimmage in this game? Yeah,
it's a good player.
Go, Jeremy.
It's a good player.
Keep talking.
Listen. I thought the Packers run game was going to take a step back. I like Josh Jacobs. I think way back in Listcast days, I had Josh Jacobs as a top 10 running back, and I think he's probably still borderline that. But he had a couple bad years in Las Vegas, Oakland, whatever they were at the time. Including last year, 3.5 a carry.
Yeah, but weird season last year too. The whole holdout and everything, and I mean, circumstance matters, right? As much as I can respect a lot of these running backs, circumstance still very much matters, and DeAndre Swift is finding that out the hard way. Although obviously a nice bounce back game for him in week 4, but do I think it's going to last? I don't. It didn't last with Philly, and that was a much better offensive line.
I was going to say, I don't even think it's circumstance anymore with DeAndre Swift. It's the ghost of Deuce Staley telling him you need to take a hit and get a few more yards, and he's just not doing it.
I mean, to me, and maybe we'll probably talk about the Lions running backs a little bit once we get back into it, but comparing DeAndre Swift running between the tackles to Jahmyr Gibbs is
Gibbs, man.
It's not even close. Like the fact that Jahmyr Gibbs is like a goal line running back now. He vultures 2 touchdowns away from David Montgomery last night. It's just like, oh yeah, he can do that too.
And they weren't toss plays or
right up the gut
gimmicky stuff. It's like, hey, hit it hard,
right?
Because that's the thing. He doesn't play around like in those situations, you know.
And how many times did we see? Now I'm getting them all mixed up in my brain. DeAndre Swift do that between the tackles and the goal line. Like, no, it was like feed it to Jamal.
That was Jamal Williams territory.
Right. Yeah. That's why he set a freaking record.
The franchise record with Barry. I know we're going through the NFC, but the last thing with the Rams is that they have Kyron Williams, and I think that he's a dude. And like he was, I mean, without much of the passing attack in Los Angeles, like I don't know, they got to win over the Rams. Like they're gonna play the Raiders here in a minute, and they're scheduled. Patriots, Dolphins, Patriots, Eagles, Saints. Like there's a stretch where they can maybe string together a few wins. They play the Cardinals again, so I think there's an outside chance that there could be 3, but let's just say 2. So we have 1 in the NFC East for sure. No, not for sure. Sorry, I was thinking teams. Obviously, we have them winning there's a team that's going to win the division. Okay, so we have 1 from the NFC West. We have 2 maybes from the NFC South and NFC East. Yeah.
And I think most people feel pretty confident 1 is going to come from the NFC North.
Undoubtedly.
At least 1. There's going to be lock 1 up, yeah.
So we're earmarking 1 for the NFC West, 1 for the NFC North, and then it's a battle between maybe an NFC East team and maybe an NFC North team.
Yeah, I think that's about right.
Big game this week, Packers. They play the Rams. Come on, let's go Rams.
Let's go Rams. And
Yeah.
God, we have to root for the Aaron Rodgers at 9:30 in the morning on Sunday.
But I not the transitive property stuff, but the Packers have beaten who?
The Eagles and
no, they lost to the Eagles.
Oh, no, that's right.
in
They lost to the
Brazil.
Eagles. I'm an idiot.
They beat the Colts 16-10, and they beat the Titans 30-14.
That's a pretty bad resume.
Am I super excited about any of those things?
No, not really.
So you're saying
I think the Pete Bukowskis of the world are just basically looked at that fourth quarter and it re-sparked them hope that this can still be a thing.
The amount of Lions fans who just hate Bukowski is very funny to me.
I haven't heard from just Lions fans about him, man. It's not just Lions fans.
They're most Dusty is our friend. We like Dusty a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, Dusty's good, Packer people.
And so is what's his name? Oh my God.
Tex?
Matub?
Texas, actually both those guys, Tex and Matub are both good. I was thinking Matub, but Texas too.
Texas is great.
But there are a lot of real cocky guys out there that just screech you the wrong way.
They're going to drink that fourth quarter as long as they can.
I'm not going to name any other names. I did find I found don't tell them, but I found a Daily Norseman retweet funny. Because it was the Simpsons. Everyone turn around and look at Bart Simpson and say the thing, and it was Packers fans saying, "Oh, this team are acting like they just won the Super Bowl."
Oh yeah. They were using the meme too with the guy who's at the Cowboys game.
I don't know.
Right? Remember the meme where the Packers fans smiling? He's taking the selfie with all the Cowboys fans, and it was that game in Dallas where the Cowboys took the lead late, and they're like, he's like, like Aaron Rodgers is going to come back and win this game.
Oh yeah, that guy. Yeah.
I mean, Jordan Love wearing a Brett Favre jersey into the stadium was, as the kids say, negative 1,000 aura. Like that was the worst way to come back.
Parkinson's or whatever.
Parkinson's.
But
yeah.
Maybe dig a little deeper in on that guy.
Yeah. The Parkinson's is not going to be enough cover for the vile he's accused of.
Can't be good for his welfare.
It's kind of like the Pete Rose stuff today, where everyone's eulogizing Pete, and I'm like, Pete had some other stuff besides just gambling on baseball. Anyway, real quick, since we touched on it a little bit, I don't know if we want to do this in the segment. I've got a lot of fans asking about Davante Adams.
No, it's not going to happen.
Sorry, it's not happening. Yeah.
No. As much. I mean, I know the Lions can afford
Patrick, baby.
Honestly, I think they're fine with their weapons. I mean, they just put up 42 points against a really good defense. They're not going to spend that sort of money. This is win now
mentality that the Lions don't have.
And here's the other thing. Like, I don't know how much is true and how much is not true, but like a lot of people are thinking Adams didn't play this past week because he's faking an injury or he's exaggerating an injury or whatever. And I can't speak to any of the truth of that sort of stuff, but like I feel like there's been a lot of smoke with that sort of things with Davante through his career.
Look, you don't know what he wants to play. He clearly wants to play with his friends. He's not happy how it went down in Las Vegas.
Just go
you're going to join.
And
if the Raiders decide to do that, I don't know if this is. And I think what makes this hard too is I also think Antonio Pierce has been showing his ass repeatedly the last few weeks. There was this thing today that that's petty. I can't do that, but there's been other instances of Pierce where I'm like, what are you doing, buddy? So
I refuse to even believe that's real, that he liked a tweet saying
I'm going to presume it was some burner account with the name Antonio Pierce, like not burner account, but like a parody account or something.
I don't know.
Yeah,
but
that's wild.
There's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
But I guess my point is that there's so much smoke over the Raiders situation. I just don't know what Davante wants, and I certainly know he will probably not fit into a Lions culture. And that's the biggest thing right now.
It all comes back to what Isaiah Thomas said about basketball, and the secret of basketball is that it's not about basketball. And it's about having a bunch of guys who value like winning more than anything else, and guys who knew their roles and like played their roles. That's why like those bad boy Pistons teams, they're the only teams in NBA history that never had a either current or future or previous MVP on their team, right? Like they were guys who like all knew their roles and did their thing. Like I didn't really say that tongue in cheek that like why would the Lions need Devonte Adams when they have Tim Patrick? Because it's evidenced by the block that Tim Patrick had in the night too, that sprung, a David Montgomery run to the outside. Like guys who know their roles and not guys who are going to come here and say, well, how many targets am I getting?
Right.
It's not about how many targets you're going to get, dude. Like there's a bunch of other mouths to feed. Like if you want to play in Detroit, like you have to understand that there's a pecking order and that this offense works. Sam Laporta might get a target or two, or Amon-Ra St. Brown might only get 4 targets. And it's like, you got to be okay with that because the Lions are clearly okay with it. Like when you pay a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown the money that you pay him, and you kind of go away from him in the first game, and he's not like quote unquote the focal point of the offense week to week. It's like, how can you justify that? Well, I can justify that because I can count on him to play his role, and he's not going to act outside of the team, right? Yep. Which is what Devonte Adams is kind of being accused of right now. So like, I don't see how that's a fit ultimately, right?
It's a great point. Well said.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
All right, let me go through the last alerts here, and I think we should get
and then we'll get back to it. Right? Yeah.
All right. Ken Jammin, thank you for the 39 months subscribed to the channel. Mike Lang, 11 months. Madi Tuhati, did we? Yeah, we're good there. Sheila Ham, Bulge, really? 25 months. It says temporary username, Killer Cornbread. Think about changing it back, please. Beacon Network,
won't you consider
on YouTube? Arnick, 42 months, says whoop whoop, go Gritty Tigs. And Irwin NCL 37 months says 19/19. What does that mean? LFG.
By the way, guys, I don't think the Raiders
19
are going
out
to
of
have
19 passes.
Oh. Wasn't
no.
it? Oh, okay.
It was 18.
We're throwing in,
well,
but we're throwing
in Amon-Ra's counts.
Oh, right. That's fair. Yeah.
Which a couple people have correctly pointed out that if you combine those two, you actually do get a perfect passer rating.
Interesting.
What were you going to say, Chris?
I was just going to say, because I saw someone, I think Tactile Puma put it in chat. I don't think the Raiders are on the verge of a fire sale either. Like I pinned them to be a really bad team. I just don't see them. And I think Pierce is kind of, again, I'm not a fan of Antonio Pierce right now, but I also don't think they're going to just crap the bed, slam the emergency brake, and trade away Max Crosby.
I mean, like, is that even like salary cap ramifications?
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Realistic. Shout out real quick, Mookie, our good friend Mookie Alexander, is watching on YouTube and says the Lions don't need Devonte Adams when they have a clear wide receiver 1 and an emerging wide receiver 2. It's kind of facts.
I mean, Mookie just saved us like 10 minutes.
Right. And the Seahawks most certainly don't need him because they have a 1, 2, and 3. Like, I can't get over how good that receiving core is.
It's really freaking good.
Yeah.
Washington Commanders for Devonte Adams?
Ooh, don't do that. I don't want that.
I definitely want him to go to the AFC, but like I also don't want him to go to the Ravens.
So we've talked a lot about Caleb Williams. How do you feel? I'm sorry, I know we got to get back into it, but how do you feel about Jaden Daniels versus like Caleb Williams aside? Everyone's gonna nitpick everything about it, but like, how confident are you in Jaden Daniels for his rookie year right now?
It honestly, it doesn't seem like watching him play. It doesn't feel fluky. It doesn't.
He doesn't look like a rookie in the same way that CJ Stroud didn't look like a rookie last year.
And I don't know Washington's personnel that well, so I don't know what their offensive line like. I don't even know what their receiving core is like outside of Scary Terry, who's a stud.
Yeah.
I mean, they traded Jahan Dotson, remember? Like,
they have McCaffrey, but it's Luke McCaffrey.
You know who their tight end is?
Zach Ertz, baby.
Zach Ertz.
Oh, damn, really?
Still kicking. Didn't they traded for him in the middle of last year, right?
The Lions did. Well, they didn't trade for him.
That's right. Then Ertz signed with the Commanders. That's right. Yeah. Like Eckler was hurt. Eckler didn't even play this past week.
I'll be honest, I've never even heard of their leading receiver in the last game. Olamide Zacchaeus.
Oh, yeah.
6 catches, 85 yards. I don't know who that guy is.
Where's he
Never
from?
heard of.
Yeah, but it's what I mean, like even
Virginia.
Ertz. How old is Ertz? He's gonna be 34 in November. He has 15 catches for 150 yards this season. Yeah. Like
they must have a pretty good offensive line. I'm looking, their rushing numbers are kind of
their running game. Brian Robinson's
dog. He's a dog.
That's a nice little help out to a rookie quarterback is to have a running game.
And Eckler is very good as well. Just even at 29, I think he's doing A-okay.
Yeah, it's just strange, man, because like they traded Montez Sweat and Chase Young's not there anymore. It's like it seemed like they hit the button to be like, okay, this is like a reset and we're drafting. Dude, it's Jaden Daniels and the head coach is Dan Quinn. What's going on?
Right? And it's kind of a little bit of a bummer, right? Because the Lions and Commanders had this obvious off-season feud, right? Where the Ben Johnson drama and things like that, and you're just like, all right, we're gonna show you you're a crappy run organization.
A blind squirrel sometimes trips over a nut.
I just didn't expect that nut to be Cliff Kingsbury.
He's a good offensive mind.
In college.
Sure, but Jaden Daniels is going to be running a lot of that same. Like, look, I think college and NFL's kind of become closer in that regard. Like, look,
there's never been more overlap than there is now.
Yeah, I think Kingsbury always was like USC. I think was about to pick him up as an OC before the Cardinals threw a house at him and a Brinks truck. Like, I think this is his role as an offensive coordinator, and I think that's potable to either college or pro.
That win meant a lot. I think they gave him the game ball after just crushing the Cardinals this week, and you could tell it meant a lot to him.
I'm sure it was a little personal too.
Yeah.
But,
all right. Back. Did you have one more thing, or should we get back to it?
I just had the one thing to say about Brady and the back and forth between him and Baker Mayfield. That was very weird.
I didn't like that at all. I didn't. Because first off, like, this idea that Baker was somehow like veiled talking about Tom Brady, like, that's not what the Bucs had a bad year before Baker Mayfield came in. All right. Like, you can put all that on, you can put that on Tom Brady or not. I don't care. But like, Ryan, I think I don't know where you're going with this, but like, I just hate this like false dichotomy of you can either have fun or you have to be super serious. Like, that's false. It's a false dichotomy. I thought it was an innocent thing Baker said, but like, why are you teeing it up for Tom Brady to just act holier than thou about it? I hated it. I hated all of it.
Just to be clear, like, Baker's comments on a podcast back on September 17th, where the building was a little bit different with Tom in there. Obviously, playing-wise, Tom is different. He had everybody dialed in, high-strung environment, so I think everybody was pretty stressed out. They wanted me to come in, be myself, bring the joy back to football for guys who weren't having as much fun. I think it's just
Brady, but yeah.
But I think it's just really, it's like not the move that Tom Brady needs to do to like clap back at Baker Mayfield when there's enough question marks about his ability as a color commentator. Like, it's so clear that Greg Olsen can do this job circles around Tom Brady.
But also, I just don't want to bring in former players and ask them to be petty about guys who are playing.
Right.
I don't want messy. I don't care about your fucking messy drama.
It should be beneath Tom Brady to respond back and say, I thought stressful was not having Super Bowl rings. There was a mindset of a champion that I took to work every day. This wasn't daycare. If I wanted to have fun, I was going to go to Disneyland with my kids. Well, apparently you weren't spending enough time with your kids, Tom. So that's kind of a strange comment to make.
Right.
It just feels very it's retaliation in a way that just doesn't, it's unbecoming.
It's unprofessional too. If you're an NFL color commentator, like that's legitimately just, I understand. Like, I think it's the competitiveness in Brady where he can't let a comment like that go. He has to defend himself. I'm not sure on an NFL broadcast is the time or the place. In fact, I do know it's not the time.
It's not. Yeah.
But yeah, like, and it's sparking this national debate. Like, I understand there are few people as competitive as Tom Brady, and a lot of that, led to his success. Absolutely no doubt about it. There's a few people in the world that have that kind of competitive spirit, and most of them that at least we know of are crazy success. Like Kobe is another one, right? Just like have this weird gene where it's just like they're uber competitive. They spend every living minute thinking about winning the next game or whatever. But I think there's also this false narrative that you have to have that or you're not going to be good.
I also think there's a false dichotomy between having fun versus winning games.
Right.
I don't think
it's like you lived in the Matt Patricia era, Chris.
No, but like, I mean, I wasn't even going to go there. You tell me the Chiefs aren't having fun.
Right. That was my point too. Yeah. The Chiefs are having a ball out there. Like, you can be very all about the work, but also, I mean, the Lions too, right? The Lions have a bunch of like silly, fun guys, and they're a really good football team, and they work hard. Amon-Ra's the perfect example, right? Just he's a little goofy, likes to have fun, he likes to do his touchdown dances, but no one's going to work harder than him on the practice field.
Yeah.
I just don't think, like, it's hard because in the NFL there's nobody else we could put up there against that. Like, I mean, except for maybe like Peyton Manning. If Peyton Manning ever got in the booth and started being like snide about it, I don't think it'd resonate the same. Obviously, you can't do it with Greg Olson or Tony Romo because they don't have the same success. But like, I don't even think we could have put someone like, say, if LeBron James moves to the booth next year for whatever reason, like, I don't think anyone would have accepted that kind of response out of LeBron James. But it's Tom Brady. What?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
No, but I'm just saying, but because it's Tom Brady, like, we have people saying that that's okay for him to do this. Like, that's the point I'm really frustrated with, because it's a rule that applies to Tom Brady and literally probably no one else out there, except for, I think Kobe Bryant's the right thing, is like, we have this worship of the hyper competitor where they're allowed to say or do whatever. And for anyone else, we would rightly point out that person is just talking like a petty jackass.
Yeah.
The one thing with me is that, like, it's not the right setting. Like, Baker's comments were on a podcast. Like, okay, that's fine. But like, Brady has this platform where he's supposed to be providing analysis for the football game. And it's like, oh, it's kind of tough for you to be a little bit objective about this football game now because you clearly have some bias against Baker Mayfield in his comments. So like,
right. And you're pulling a national audience into your drama.
Yes.
Brady goes on plenty of shows and podcasts. You could have done this there, and that would have been fine there, but not on a broadcast.
Exactly.
box.
100%. Like, there's a time and a place to do it. And like Jeremy said, it's just not professional. And to your point, Chris, you're all over the place. Go say it on the second roast of Tom Brady, right? The thing that I always come back to is, like, I love the barbs between players when they're in media scrums. Like, my favorite one is Jeremy Roenick and Patrick Waugh. When Jeremy Roenick is talking trash about Patrick Waugh, and Patrick Waugh claps back with something like, I didn't hear him because I had my Stanley Cup rings in my ears. Like that's fun. And it's like, you're in front of the media and you can put things out in the press and things like this. You're Tom Brady on Fox. And like, you could tell that, like, it was an awkward transition from what he said to who, I forget who was in the booth with him, but it's their top play-by-play guy.
I don't know.
But there was like this awkward kind of segue that, like, Tom really didn't set him up in a way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just like
Right.
bad broadcasting. So it's just like, oh, you threw down with Baker Mayfield. Let's go to Baker for comment. Oh wait, he's still on the football field playing the game.
Yeah. Tom Brady sucks.
I also think Baker Mayfield. I also think Baker Mayfield is just an easy target in these things, considering how many years we've allowed people to just say whatever they've wanted to say about Baker Mayfield. I think that's absolutely part of it too, where it's like Baker Mayfield is seen as this acceptable target because if he ever opens his mouth and says anything affirmative about something that he's doing good, you're allowed to take a baseball bat to him.
Yeah. Goldfinch, totally
Leave
agree.
Baker alone.
Yeah.
All right. You want to go?
Yeah.
You want to get back
Yeah,
into it? I'm sorry.
We've said it about 8 times now. No, it's
I
fine.
know.
I'm glad you did. I thought about it, but I'm like, you know what? We should probably get to it. I'm glad you brought it up, though, because it was bugging me this weekend.
That's probably the only break we're going to take. I think after we're done with this segment, we're probably done. So,
yeah.
All right. I'm ready when you are.
Sorry, I'm just looking at the guy you banned on Twitch. He kind of that report kind of made me laugh. Sorry. Welcome back to the Pride of Detroit POD cast. We had a bit of a lengthy break there. I almost want to turn that into some scraps. We did. We'll see if I have some time this week. I always like try to bring scraps back where I can. Anyway, let's talk about a couple individual performances and then what comes next for the Lions. I say individual performances, but I should probably also mean individual questions that come out of it. And I think I do want to start at the top with a couple of checkered questions. And do you want to start with Terry and Arnold, Ryan, or do you want to start with James Houston?
Oh, we're starting with the bad and then getting to the good.
Yes, I think that's a good way to go here.
I think let's talk about James Houston first because of where we were in the first segment talking about Derek Barnes and how this team had to, as I said, build the plane in the air when it came to defense because it seems like Derek Barnes is going to be missed a little bit more than we were anticipating.
Yeah. And listen, the Lions gave no indication that that job was going to be handed to James Houston. In fact, the vibes were very bad when Dan Campbell was asked about James Houston in the week leading up to this game, and then James Houston goes out there, plays, I don't know, a dozen snaps-ish, 2 offsides penalties, nothing on the score sheet, no impact whatsoever. I was asked this in the mailbag last week, the PODD subscriber mailbag, what's he still doing on the roster? And my answer is I don't know. I don't know. If he can't play that Sam linebacker role, if you lose Marcus Davenport and he's not in the conversation to replace him, what is he doing on this roster? I don't know.
He's not setting the edge in run defense. They're not giving him those kind of opportunities. You know what I mean? Like he played 14 snaps. Yeah, he played 14 snaps. 13 of them were pass rush.
Right. That's what I was going to say. Like, he was in mostly in the second half when you knew that they were going to throw the ball a billion times, and he did nothing with those snaps. And I'm not trying to bury the guy, but it speaks to why he's been in the doghouse as long as he's been in, is because he just hasn't looked like himself. And I don't know if it's the ankle injury. I don't know if it's the mental stress that he's had to go through. We were talking about this a little bit in the POD Slack today. Like, he's been through a lot. Mentally, emotionally, right? Like he gets cut in his rookie year. He has to spend the first half of his rookie season on a practice squad. And if you read the Ty Dunn story, he thought about quitting football at that point. He felt like he had, and even going back into college, right? Like it was not easy at Florida. Deion Sanders saved this man's football career, and then he gets to the professional level and he hits another wall. And then his second year, he loses basically the entire season to an ankle injury. And when he returns, he's third string on the Lions, training camp roster, and he's doing nothing in these games. And to me, it's just like, this dude has been through a lot. I don't know if the ankle injuries helped or hurt his his bend, his ability to pass rush, but he's clearly not the player that he was in that 7-8 game stretch. And at this point, I don't know what the Lions can do with him to salvage it.
Yeah, I bring it up mostly because, again, like the rest of you, I don't want to bury him. This is really hard. I'm not calling for the job or anything. I just wonder how much more we're going to see of him given the production, what this staff really kind of trusts him with. And this all comes with all throughout the offseason, preseason, and even into the early part of the season. I still had fans asking me about James Houston. This idea that what he brings to the field on pass rush outweighs all of the negatives. You've got to have him out there. You've got to let him, be opposite Aiden Hutchinson, bring those big jumbo packages, use him, use the weapon that you clearly have. And I always argued, are we sure he still has that weapon available to him? And after this game, I don't know if that's there. And I don't know if he's going to get a lot more opportunities to show if he has it or not. I don't know what else is going on with him right now. I don't want to say anything else on that front, but what we're seeing on the field does lead me to believe that I'm going to be very fascinated to see how much more James Houston we see this year.
Trevor Nowaski season? Question mark. Hey,
you
want a good local story? Look no further than Saginaw Valley State, and a guy who played, 8 snaps, 7 pass rushing snaps, but he had 3 pressures on 7 snaps. That's pretty good. I mean, it's not 15 pressures like Aiden Hutchinson, but there's always room to grow.
Yeah. Right. I do think there are a lot of questions though with how they're going to approach that Sam linebacker role, because they rolled a lot of players through it in this past game. That they had Alex Anzalone there, they had Nowaski there, they had a lot of Ben Neiman there, which was probably the most unsuccessful of the group. But I think we might be barking up the wrong tree if we're who's the one player that's going to replace Derek Barnes. I think the lines are committee by committee.
Players.
It's going to have to be Sam by committee. Yeah. One who, again, not a great start to this year going into the bye, but also someone I don't think I need to say he needs to be sad at all, though, with Terry and Arnold, Ryan. I think that is an overreaction. The penalties have been, we talked a little bit about the penalties in the first half, and we said that part of that's a little bit by design, that just don't give up big stuff. But the amount of penalties Terrian has drawn is something of concern right now. But I also think part of that is, how much of that is just being a rookie at corner in the NFL?
I want to say that I think playing outside corner as a rookie in the NFL is the hardest transition that any player can make from the college to the NFL. And that includes quarterback to me. There's enough that an offense can do to manufacture things and make things work around a rookie quarterback. When you are a rookie cornerback, you are lining up against the best of the best week in and week out. This league is filled with incredibly talented wide receivers, and Terrian Arnold's penalties are not anything that has me ready to say, oh, hey, maybe he needs to become part of a rotation, or they need to get more guys. You can't do that to a guy's psyche. At a position like cornerback, where mentality is almost 60% of the battle, you gotta have a vote of confidence in that kid. You're not putting him in a cornerback rotation. This isn't Matt Patricia, and you're not rotating guards. We're talking about outside cornerback, and guess what? The Lions are 3-1. Their defense has been pretty darn good in 3 of those 4 games. And you've made it to the other side. Now, you've taken a month of his season, Jeremy, of his rookie season, and you've given him the runway to learn. And the Lions are not worse for it. There's a bye week to clean stuff up, and then there's a whole other half to the season. Where's your faith in Terry Arnold right now? Because mine is not shaken or stirred.
Not at all. And I'm going to be quite honest. I think he keeps getting better every week. I do. I think
it wasn't all bad yesterday, right? No. It wasn't all bad.
Yeah. You want to know what PFF credited him for? Take the penalties aside for now. 3 catches on 6 targets for 18 yards. Do I need to say anything else? Like we just got done talking about how good this wide receiving core, maybe the best wide receiving core in football. He's going up against mostly an 11-year vet in why can't I think of his name now?
Tyler Lockett. Yeah.
Tyler Lockett, a savvy route runner, may not have like the physical athletic skills that he used to and that some of the guys that Tyrann will face. And I'm not going to say he locked him down, but he did a pretty damn good job of it. And again, I want to highlight something that Justin Rogers of Detroit Football Network talked about on his podcast, because I thought it was really insightful and something I had never considered, because he talked to Terran Arnold and just talked about what his perspective of why the pass interference stuff is happening. And he's like, well, you know what? One of the biggest adjustments I have is timing. Because when I'm at college, the ball is coming in at a different angle. It's coming in at a different speed. In the NFL, it's coming in lower and faster. I don't have as much time to get off, the guy. Because, listen, you're hand fighting the entire way all the time in the NFL. There's never a wide receiver cornerback matchup that involves zero contact. It's happening. It's just a matter of getting your hands off when the ball is arriving. And that's the timing thing that he doesn't have down yet. And like you said, Ryan, it is such a drastic difference, not only in how the rules are enforced, but in the level of play of both the wide receivers and the quarterback that require such a big adjustment. The man is in position to make plays. That is the most important thing to me right now, because it's the hardest thing. Everything else is just it's getting the reps in, it's getting the timing in, it's stuff that will come. And to me, he's very, very close. Very, very close. Extremely close. I am not shaken at all. In fact, I'm more encouraged than shaken. I know we all want a Sauce Gardner type rookie season. That's the exception,
rare.
Not the rule.
Rare, man.
And to me, I'm encouraged by both cornerbacks' play, and the penalties are frustrating and they're costly. I'm not going to downplay how costly they are, because listen, pass interference penalty is 50 yards in this league sometime, and you know who's really good at drawing them? Jordan Love and the goddamn Packers. Like, it's going to happen against the Packers. It's going to drive me nuts, but eventually it's going to get cleaned up. Eventually the Lions are going to get away with a couple, or the maybe just maybe the officiating is going to back off a little bit. I'm still very optimistic about the Lions outside corners right now, and we haven't even seen Rakestraw play because he's mostly been injured. He's another guy that we can't completely forget about. Emmanuel Mosley is expected back at some point in the season, and I'd love to see that kid play a little bit.
I thought Amik Robertson played pretty well in this game as well, too.
I need to go back and watch. I didn't see a ton of Amik Robertson. I didn't feel like he was targeted all that much in this game.
He still knocked down 2 passes, so yeah.
You know what? He had 8 targets and 5 catches allowed for just 40 yards. So maybe I need to pay closer attention. But either way, I know it's their weak point right now, and there's no denying the outside corners are the weak point of the defense right now. But in general, particularly in the long term, and even when I say long term, that kind of just means like December, I think they're going to be fine.
Is there another player you guys want to talk about, maybe on a more positive note that we haven't covered from the first segment? Because I thought we were pretty encompassing on a lot of.
Can we just
go
Can
on.
we give it up for the running backs, man? Like we talked about it a little bit in the break here, but I can't get out of my head how enjoyable it is to watch these two, and I wrote it a little bit about it in my report card. But the interchangeability of these two, when on a surface, these guys don't look like similar at any aspect of the game, but because when you look at Jahmyr Gibbs, what do you think? Throw him the ball. Get him out in space. Well, who's the guy who caught the only pass in this game between those two guys and made a ton of plays in space? David frickin' Montgomery running all over the Seahawks.
And yet they're used at every position in this offense, and yet very different in their style, where Montgomery will drag guys. Kyle Brandt's on Twitter saying, like, I don't know who else to give the angry runs to every week. He's going to keep the scepter. Right. But Jahmyr Gibbs, like, as you say, like, watching him punch up the middle and nobody can touch him as he goes through there.
Yeah.
And that's like somewhere you'd be like, yeah, of course you're going to use David Montgomery there, but Gibbs is just elusive.
If you were to just look at the box score of this game and you say, okay, one Lions running back has 2 rushing touchdowns. They were both from inside the 5-yard line, and the other guy had a 40-yard reception. 99 times out of 100, you're like, oh, Dave Montgomery had the 2 short touchdown runs, and Jahmyr Gibbs had the 40-yard catch. Nope. Opposite.
It's Gibbs, and they were walk-in.
Well, I was going to say the one time out of the 100 would be Parker Hesse, maybe? I don't know. The one thing I have noticed about this offense that doesn't drive me nuts, even though I feel like it should drive me nuts, they work them in drives for the most part. Mm-hmm. Like, there is a David Montgomery drive, and then there's a Jahmyr Gibbs drive, and then there's a David Montgomery, and then the lines start to blur a little bit.
Yeah.
But not as often as you think they would. And I think that always comes back to that really interesting case study of being a running back and being in rhythm and getting the ball and being out on the field and feeling the game out a little bit. But it works in Detroit. And I think it helps keep them fresh. And I find it very interesting.
There's 2 things I want to say real quick on that. One is that after that 40-yard catch from Dave Montgomery where he plowed over guys and ran probably a total of 50 yards.
Yeah.
Do you remember what the next play was?
A run to David Montgomery.
Yeah, I'm like, dude, give the guy a break. Are you kidding?
Yes, I remember that play because I was like, that's just not going to work.
Right, and it didn't.
Yeah.
But it speaks to your point of like they very much like drive-by-drive guys. They don't like to spell guys when they're on a roll like that. But I think the underlining of that point too is really important, which is they're keeping both guys fresh. The touches are almost even between these 2 guys every single game. The snap counts are almost even every single game. And, it might not look great in the stats where, the Lions don't have a top 10 running back, but they have both the 11 and the 12. But when you look at the rushing attempts, when you look at the touches, you're like, these guys are going to still be balling in January.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like they've got to keep him fresh. Because again, like that's the secret sauce sometimes, especially when you can do what you did in the Rams on overtime. Let's move on to talk about the. Was there someone else you want to talk about, Ryan? Before we move on to start talking about. Okay, let's talk about the bye week a little bit. What's coming up here? What is, Ryan, the most important thing the Lions need to work on for the bye?
Well, it's an easy answer to say get healthy.
Yeah, let's
because
put
we
healthy
just
aside.
talked. Yeah, we just talked about Derek Barnes and Frank Ragnow, and obviously those guys coming back. That's what's going to feel so good about being later in the season is the Lions are going to get reinforcements just by way of getting players healthy. But I think in the bye week, the one way that they can get better is they can really tighten up what it's going to look like past the defensive front. Like, I think that the secondary just needs to get tightened up, and there needs to be room for growth and development there in a way that the Lions expect what they're going to get out of their defensive line. Like they know what they're going to get out of a guy like DJ Reader, who DJ Reader's been great too. Like that's something that's kind of been understated is like the guy just can push the pocket and there's nobody who's really pushing him around. So that changes a lot of things. I don't think it's shocking that Aiden Hutchinson had 15 pressures yesterday in a game where I thought both Aleem and DJ Reader had really solid games. But it's the back end. It's getting it healthy and getting it figured out because coming into the season, Jeremy, one of our big question marks was, well, how's it all going to gel? We didn't even really see it during the preseason.
Yep. And
now we're coming out of the bye and it's, well, how's it going to gel? Because, well, if he's still not around, Brandon Joseph played a starter, share of snaps. Brian Branch, how does all this work, and where do we feel at our most comfortable in our defense and in our base?
That's a really good point too, because I think that first month of the season is for that exactly. It's feeling yourself out. It's figuring out what you do well, figuring out what you like doing, figuring out what works best against opponents. And one of the things that I think has been most fascinating about the Lions start is their commitment to base defense. They're not going nickel very often unless they have to. And that's fascinating to me because they are playing 11 personnel teams all the time. To me, it was a little terrifying out there early in the game, seeing these amazing 3 wide receivers going out wide, and you only having 2 corners on them and kind of a linebacker over the other with 2 deep safeties, and it's just like, how the hell is this going to work? And they allowed 7 points in the first half. Like it was working. They played a lot more nickel in the second half. Yeah,
Alex Anzalone going out to the boundary with like Zach Charbonnet or Kenneth Walker, and I'm just like, what's going on?
Yeah,
like
it's fascinating because not a lot. I was talking with Brett Whitefield about this today because he has all the data over fantasy points, and I'm just like, is this normal? Like this does not feel normal. He's like, dude, no one does this. And I think you have to examine that, see if that's really what you want to do, if that's working the best. If Amik is playing really good football, maybe you want him on the field more than 45% of the time. Maybe you want him up to like 60, 70%, like Brian Branch numbers during most of his rookie season. I think you need to figure out the edge right now, particularly the Sam linebacker position. I do think Josh Paschal is doing a good enough job to replace Marcus Davenport that you don't have to be too worried about that. It's not the exact same, but even Dan Campbell said it himself today. Like, Josh Paschal was excellent last week against Arizona. He was even better this week. Mm-hmm. And I think you saw that. Like, I see a lot of Lions fans saying, like, they need a pass rusher. They need a pass rusher. I don't know what's happening. They need a pass rusher. I think they're executing what they want to do in a pass rush almost to perfection. Dan Campbell was a little wishy-washy on it today, but I think, like, crush the pocket. That's all that they're about is surround the quarterback. And they did that a lot last night.
You had 3 sacks in this game. Like
3 sacks.
Like the way Lions fans talk sometimes, you'd act like they're not getting those, but they had 3 sacks.
And listen, I hate to be Mr. Pressures matter, but pressures matter. They do. Mm-hmm. And Geno had to throw a lot of those balls away. He had to make a lot of, like, again, we talked about in the first half of this podcast, a lot of the reason why the Seahawks were in that ball game was because Geno had to make magic happen. Now the Lions got a little bit loose in their rushing lanes and integrity, but in general, I thought they utilized the game plan that has worked for them now really for all 4 weeks. They haven't let quarterbacks get out of the pocket. They've made them uncomfortable. They have a ton of pressures, and they do it mostly without blitzing. Like they still blitz a fair amount, but I'm very encouraged by the defensive front. To me, it's the Sam linebacker position. It's what you said, Ryan. Let's get the secondary a little bit tighter, a little bit cleaner. Try to get rid of as many penalties as possible. And then offense, like, I think they turned a corner to me against Arizona and then took off this week. And I can only assume it's going to continue in that direction because it always has under Ben Johnson.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about you, Chris?
I think you guys took both of them, to be honest. It's just kind of nailing down a couple of those positions, mostly, especially for me on the pass rush side. Like it's, you just got to work on a couple small things at the end of the day on all this.
Is there anything on offense that you want to see? Because we mostly focus on defense, but is there anybody that you want to see get more usage?
I am curious what you do. Like Ragnow is going to come back this week, but with his week-to-week status, that's the big maybe. With his week-to-week status through this season, like, I'm encouraged by what I saw with Glasgow at center and Awasika starting at guard, but maybe I want to see some reps with that kind of formation with those guys. Because I think the O-line, we talked about this a little bit. I think it was the Cardinals game where they gave up a sack on the 3-man pressure, which was really uncharacteristic for this O-line. Like, maybe you just need to try out a couple things, because I thought O-line play was a lot better. And again, that's always with the corollary of, okay, the Seahawks were pretty well banged up on their front 7, whatever. But like, I like what I saw. I really liked what I saw out of Graham Glasgow, and I liked what I saw out of Awasika. Especially I don't think it was a goal touchdown, but one of those holes for one of those long Jahmyr Gibbs runs was just Awasika and Glasgow opening up the seas for him. Like that's not something I would have said I was confident on seeing out of a Glasgow plus Awasika combo before the season started, but I saw it with my own eyes out there.
That was a lot of people's biggest concerns, myself included. I think there are a lot of people that were concerned about the depth on the offensive line. Awasika being one of them.
Yeah, and I think Zeitler's starting to come along well and gelling with this line too. Like, it was always questions about interior pressure, and we see so much the pass rush in the NFL moving to interior pressure that just like, look, I think there were a lot of questions I had about the Lions O-line that got answered against the Seahawks. Like, I feel a lot more comfortable now about how they handle these situations because injuries on the O-line have always been, Jeremy, the biggest question we've had about this team on sustaining its success.
Yeah, it's so important to what they do, and this is the NFL. There aren't 5 good enough offensive linemen on every single team, let alone the room for 6 or 7 or 8. But you're right. Alshika came in, did a decent job, and Graham proved again that he's one of the most valuable pieces on that offensive line, even if he isn't one of the best. Like, he is just so versatile. He's so important. He can play either guard spot. He can play center. And every single year that they've had him, they've needed him to be kind of that utility guy, and that the importance of that can't be understated.
I'll even throw Dan Skipper in here. The way they were rolling out sometimes the six man sets and even using Skipper on the swing, like that was good stuff out there. I liked how they used Dan Skipper as well. I think, when a lot of this depth is given on the Lions roster to development projects like Manu and Mahogany and Sorsdal, seeing at least one of those projects in Awashika come out, start, and like really, really put on a good performance in this game, that really kind of gives me hope that, once again, just all props to the Lions O-line coach. And
their commitment to development, right?
Everything. Yeah. This commitment to development, that this is a long-term project with the Lions. Yes. This isn't a win now situation. Like it
is, but like at the same time, you can keep both plates spinning, so to speak, of like, okay, the here and now is important and the future is important. And listen, I was one of the guys most critical of some of that, right? Like, I'm like, okay, but your window is now too. Like, let's not put too many resources into the future. But and I just wrote this thing on JMO that's going to go up tomorrow morning about the commitment that they had to developing him, right? And we didn't talk a ton about JMO in this game, and we probably should have, because listen, he's 11th in receiving yards right now in the entire NFL.
He deserved to do the Megatron celebration. Yes. He deserved that.
It was really cool hearing Dan Campbell talk about their plan with Jameson Williams, their commitment to developing people as not just players, but people. Talking about, I mean, we all know that Teddy Bridgewater played a big role in that. It also shows the importance of drafting a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown, who sets a standard in that room that if you either fall in line or you're off the team, that helps a guy like Amon-Ra. He talks about people in the player development department. They have a department of people dedicated to making sure these guys are on the straight and narrow. They're making good life choices. They're making good football choices. And Dan Campbell finishes this whole old deal about Jameson Williams saying, like, you have to realize that is not the norm in the NFL. Not everyone commits those kind of resources to player development. Not all NFL teams have an owner who is willing to commit those resources. Not many have a franchise that has the vision to invest that sort of stuff and be patient with it too, right? Like we've talked about it with some of the other players like Derek Barnes, Ifeatu Melifonwu,
Levi
Onwuzurike is another one example where it's not just like, okay, if you don't get in year 1, year 2, you're gone. We're going to be patient with you. We understand people develop at different times. And so
James Houston.
He's still on the team.
The other side, that's the other side of it. But like, they're still giving him 3 years here. Yeah.
Yes, but like to that point, right? It's like the second half of his rookie season was not a flash in the pan. Like, we still believe in that James Houston, maybe to the bitter end, but it's not of much consequence.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so while draft day B was maybe a little bit disappointing that they're spending a roster spot and a future 3rd round pick on someone who might not play or see the field until 2026 or whatever. I understand it. It's sound thinking at times. And I have full confidence in this coaching staff, in this whole organization, to get the most out of that player when it's time for him to have his shot.
Which really gives me confidence as we move forward too, because at some point too, like, Sewell, you're going to have around for a while. Ragnow, Decker, you're going to have to probably make some plans. Not now, not even in kind of the immediate future, but years down the line. But you're going to want, like, if even one of these projects kind of comes up and takes one of their positions at some point when they're done at whenever they're done, then that's perfect, man. That's absolutely perfect. And that's kind of, but some of that time comes with real live action out there. And Awashika got some of that on Monday night. And he proved competent out there. Especially in an offseason where we spent a lot of time wondering about the Lions letting Jonah Jackson go too.
True.
Yeah. Or Josh Reynolds being let go. And when did they, and I'm not saying it's fixed, but when have they put themselves on a path to success? Well, it took all the way until the end of the preseason.
And it took a guy, and it's coming from a guy who was cut from another team's roster and started on a practice squad in Tim Patrick. And I think Tim Patrick had some interesting play even last game against the Cardinals.
It's coming along.
Certainly
man.
not as he's already coming along. Last week it was his first catches in about 3 years. And then this game he belts out what was his stat line again? It was 50 yards.
2 for 52
yards.
Hey, all I know is that I got him at near even odds to get 10 receiving yards, and that was easy.
Well, there's the gambling side of it, so I think that means it's about time to wrap up this podcast.
Hey, can't we make money and watch our football team?
Speaking of watching football teams.
Ooh, yes.
Oh.
We got an announcement, if you haven't heard
Jeremy.
already.
Yes. This one's a little bittersweet for me, but make it.
Yeah, this upcoming Sunday, the Lions bye week Sunday, we are having a meet and greet watch party for the 1 p.m. games at Bookie's Bar and Grill, downtown Detroit. Google it for the specific address, but we're looking to have upwards to about 100 Pride of Detroit fans there to just sit around, watch football, chat with each other. We're going to have name tags if you're part of the Pride of Detroit comment community, so you can put your username on there so people recognize you. But please sign up so that we can get an accurate head count so that we can prepare bookies. So go to prideofdetroit.com. I'm going to pin the article that has a link to the Eventbrite. Just RSVP. If you RSVP, it's not like a ticket or anything like that. There's no ticket required. Again, we're just trying to get an accurate head count. We do have a limit to amount of people that we can have there as well. So if you do plan on going, please RSVP as soon as you can. Please only RSVP if you do plan on going. Make sure we're not giving away your spot to someone who isn't going to go. So again, go to pridedetroit.com, Bookies Bar and Grill downtown. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're talking about some contests that you would be interested in too.
And really, unfortunately my schedule just could not work this out. We had me and Jeremy had a lot of go back and forth as far as stuff, so I will not be there. But please go there. I hope this is still successful because we want to.
Yes.
If this is big enough, we do think we can open the door up to future live events.
Yes.
And I might be able to swing a plane ticket this time.
Yes.
For that next time. So please go there, show up, make some very poor judgments along with Ryan as far as
don't do that.
Gambling.
But yeah, like a lot of the Pride of Detroit staff is going to be there. So if you've ever wanted to meet me, Eric, I think Ryan, I know some other people have committed to going as well. So yeah, just come have a lot of fun. Unfortunately, the game slate isn't great for the 1 p.m. slot, but I'll probably hang around for a little bit of the 4 p.m. Yeah, it's the NFL. There's going to be some exciting games, even if it's teams we don't care that much about. So please join us if you can. If you can't, no big deal. If you're out of town, totally get it. But the more success that we can have in an event like this, the more likely we're going to have a bigger event with more things that we're doing. That's going to involve all of the Pride of Detroit staff, and I'm really excited for the potential of what could come. And so, if we show out in this first attempt, even bigger things could be on the way.
Yeah, which also does remind me that we are now on the countdown to Movember.
True.
So keep that all handy. If you follow us, if you haven't been following us on Twitch at all, Be sure to follow us over there when we go live, because in about a month's time, there will be a lot of live streams. There will be a great charity that we're going to be partnering with once again. There's going to be, plenty of chances to do horrible, awful things to us on stream. And yes, this is kind of, not saying anything about the live event, but I'm just, Movember's coming down the pike too. Any final words, Ryan, before we get out of here?
It's always on you, Ryan.
It's no bye week. Relax. RELA.
No. That's kind of hard to do when the Tigers decide that they want to play playoff baseball, though.
It's fun, man. Go enjoy baseball.
Yeah, go enjoy baseball. We have multiple competitive teams in Detroit now. Have fun with it. It's great. October in the D. Any final words, Jeremy?
In the words of Dan Campbell, I hate baseball.
No, you don't. Goodbye, everyone. We will see you Starside.
Recording stopped.
All right.
I ordered Taco Bell.
Free taco? Is taco dollar tacos or something?
They're like doing drops. Did you see that?
Yeah, they're doing drops.
Yeah.
It's like through the day. I actually went there because it was my last day to redeem a birthday Baja Blast freeze. But can I shit on Wendy's for a second?
We haven't had fast food talk in a while.
No. So they've been advertising that new breakfast burrito, right? They're really big, and apparently the Taco Bell near me decided once and for all they're not doing any more breakfast too. No breakfast from Taco Bell, which left me crestfallen. So
Blessing in disguise.
Sometimes go to like Wendy's, and I've had their breakfast burrito a couple times. And it's like, usually when I've gotten it, it's been good. Sausage, potatoes, everything in it is fine. Everything in it is perfectly fine. When I found out yesterday Taco Bell was near me was no longer doing breakfast at all, like, look, I love fast food breakfast. So I'm like, all right, fine. I'm going to go to Wendy's and just check them out. They've usually been good on the burritos, so what's the worst that could happen? I get the burrito home, take a bite out of it. There's no meat in the first bite. I'm like, all right, fine. Maybe it's farther down. They gave me, I asked for sausage, potato, and egg burrito. They gave me a burrito that was barely wrapped with eggs and French fries. Eggs and French fries.
What'd you say to him? What did
nothing.
I didn't know. Them off?
I don't know. Nothing.
Nothing.
I ordered on the app. How could I have done anything?
The breakfast baconator is where it's at, anyways.
No, that's good too. But I do like the burritos, and they're. No, it was not good, David Lunch. That's the problem. There was no sausage in it at all. Like, I am just.
Their potato wedges are good though, and they literally gave you French fries and not potato wedges.
They put French fries instead and no meat, and charged me $5.60 for it.
I like Laser Mouse's comment. What did he say to piss him off? Hi, I'm TV's Chris Perfett.
Like I'm on TV.
Hi, I'm radio's Chris Perfett.
Yeah, I didn't like my Red Zone radio appearances or something. I don't know.
You guys aren't on like DirecTV channel 872?
No, unfortunately, no. We have DirecTV 872 up on our TVs.
Did you know that they air the Believe Network podcasts on TV?
Yes.
I feel like
when
we may or may not have
whoa, we don't talk about
that. Did they mention that though?
Yes, they did. They did.
I wasn't in that meeting. So apparently
we took notes.
Apparently not good notes.
Should we not be talking about that? I don't know.
No. Well, I think the thing was that that was for people who had the Believe branding.
Yeah, but it was just wild that I was scrolling through and I was like, Believe Rams, and I click on it, it turns out, and it's just like the Believe podcast. I'm like, oh shh. If I could have got on TV, my dad may think that I'm actually making something of myself.
Ryan, you're a teacher.
Your dad would have watched, and like Wally would have parroted one of your hot takes back to you. Is what you're saying. Rather than getting them from Craig Carton or Stephen A. Smith, he'd accidentally hear Ryan Matthews, not put it together that it's you, and then on the phone with you,
Yeah.
What they say is the best ability is availability, Rye.
I would have stared at him like I saw a ghost. Did you see that Craig Carton clip of him saying, all right now, would you trade Caleb Williams for Aaron Rodgers? And somebody was like, Aaron Rodgers is ancient.
We have to remember always in this. We have to remember always in this that Carton, once again, I'm going to keep pointing out, New York guy. Do not listen to New York guys. Do not trust New York guys. Do not ignore their opinions. I'm tired of New York guys. Because I also heard someone else doing this with Sam Darnold, and like it's the whole just wait, Sam Darnold will turn back to this, just wait. And all I could think about the entire time was jilted Jets fan.
The Jets aren't fun at all.
That was a miserable. That game set football back 30 years against the Broncos.
To our point though about the Bucks being good, like the Broncos defense is friggin' legit.
True. It's true.
And Bo Nix is so bad.
I don't know.
I'm just realizing I was so busy today.
Have you ever won a football game after throwing 40 yards passing and having negative yardage at halftime? To me, that takes a lot of skill.
Imagine if they had like a Malik Willis in there instead.
El Gato Diablo commented almost at the exact same time as you. It said,
I just saw it. Great minds think alike. All right, I'm so hungry. I'm going to go eat Taco Bell.
All right. Yeah. I think that's hopefully everyone watching. Let's all go to Taco Bell right now. It's National Taco Day.
I screwed up. I did not get everyone send good thoughts to Ruby. I forgot to call about his blood work today, apparently, and the vet's closed now, so I'm going to have to call tomorrow. But,
good vibes.
Yeah, good vibes to Rube. I think it's they said he's okay in the just exam, but since he is now about 14 years old, they wanted to take some blood work anyway, just to be sure. So I was supposed to call today about it, and I just completely forgot. So I'll call tomorrow.
All right. And with that, I think we'll call it. Oh, I got a couple alerts to go to. Or one? Just one. Just the one that came in. No, two. El Gato Diablo, Did I say that one? Tim Patrick coming for wide receiver 1. Watch out, Sun God. All right, relax. And Katie, you're just coming in now. 45 months says, I missed it.
You'll have the podcast.
Katie. You can, as soon as we close this up too, you can either listen to the podcast on the feed tomorrow morning or just watch the replay on YouTube and Twitch, which is available immediately after we turn this thing off, which I think is what we're going to do right now. I'm trying to see if my raid button is going to work, and if so, if any of our friends are live. We haven't done a raid in a while. How many people we got over here on Twitch? My whole streaming thing got messed up because I was trying to make sure it didn't screw up. And guess what? It actually didn't screw up today.
Hooray!
I think we're good. Let's not raid anyone today. Let's not risk further screwing things up. But appreciate you guys watching. We will have a midweek mailbag tomorrow is what we're aiming for. That'll probably be the last podcast of the week, as I'm planning on taking a few days off later in the week. We haven't quite decided whether we're going to do a podcast next week. Chris isn't going to be able to be a part of that.
Yeah.
We may just take the week off.
One of the reasons I am missing that, I haven't seen my mother in a long time. She's actually coming out to visit me out here, and I kind of learned about this a day or two before Jeremy was like, hey, we're trying to do like a live show. But I'm going to be.
It's not going to be a live show, to be clear. No live show.
I mean, sorry, not live show. I meant meet and greet in Detroit. Either way, I want to spend some time with my family. I didn't really get a chance too much. It's been an odd year for my family, so I just kind of want to spend some time. So I'm going to take a bit of time off. But before I take some time off, I have promised the Honolulu blue Kool-Aid recipe, which will be coming this week.
There you go.
I promise on that front.
Check it out on the website. So yeah, TBD on a next week POD cast. There's also that we'll work it out later in the week. But anyways, midweek mailbag coming to you soon. Make sure you check that out. I'll try to get a written mailbag in also this week before I head out. So either way, like everyone said, enjoy some Tigers baseball. Enjoy some.
Try to.
Listen, they won. That's exciting. To me, like, I'm coming from kind of an outsider's view because I'm not a huge Tigers fan, but like everything kind of feels like cherry on the top at this point.
It's still going to hurt if they lose.
That's how you know you're good. Is it hurts when you lose.
Anyway.
All right,
guys.
See you guys later. Appreciate all the support.